And my lieutenant's like, Martinez, put fire down that trench line. Nothing lives. Kill it all. I'm like, sir, I got to get more rounds. They're in my ruck. He's like, no, where are your rounds, Marine? I go, out there. He goes, go get it. And I was like, I just crossed that deadly ground. My name is Harry Martinez. I served in 2 branches, Army National Guard and the United States Marine Corps. And I'm currently serving now as an Army National Guard Brigade Operations Sergeant Major. I enlisted in 1983, but I think I need to add that I took a 12-year break between the Marine Corps and when the war in Iraq broke out. I decided to go back in as a 38-year-old E4. I was born in New Jersey, in the city of New Brunswick. And I lived for a short time in the city. My mom and dad were very poor. They were immigrants from Colombia. And my dad, being the entrepreneur that he was, he managed to buy us a brand new house in South Brunswick, New Jersey. I grew up in South Brunswick. I attended the parochial school system all the way through high school. It was a very rural community, a lot of farm country around. In fact, when I went to St. Augustine's parochial school for middle school, there was a farm nearby, and every once in a while the cows would come onto the school property. It was ideal childhood. We didn't even have stop signs in the street. Kids could play out in the street. In my case, I ran around barefooted during the summer. My summers, we would go to the lake to go swimming. They had a recreation department that would bus us over there. I had this, behind my house, it was adjacent to the woods. And that became my territory to explore. I was involved in Boy Scouts. And it was an Italian, that's ignorant. It was an Italian and Irish neighborhood. Very few Latinos and very few African Americans, but there were some. And it didn't take away, it's just the way, it didn't take away, it wasn't because of demographics in terms of, people didn't come out there. It's just, it was a new development and new families were coming in. So I grew up, I think, almost like in a bubble. Now, did we have issues growing up? Yes, and that formed me into the person that's sitting here today. And that began with my parents. My parents immigrated from Colombia. My dad had a 9th grade education and my mother a 3rd grade education. But my dad was an entrepreneur at heart. And at some point, he was running 3 businesses. He ran a fencing company, he ran a taxi business, he ran a mechanic shop, and he was part of a franchise for a gas station. He operated. I remember growing up and watching my dad go armed to the gas station that he owned to put up certain flags because they basically dictated who was going to be allowed to get gas during the crisis back in the 70s as a child. In addition to that, I watched my dad help a lot of people. He would set them up with jobs. He would educate them like, this is America, and this is what you need to do, especially in the Latino community. He was the only Colombian in a sea of Puerto Ricans. And I mean that lovingly. It's just, that's who they were. Back then, if you spoke Spanish, people would naturally assume you were Puerto Rican. Today, if you speak Spanish, people would say, oh, are you Mexican? So it's the same thing. And what I learned from my father that has stayed to me this day, and I've kind of passed on to my children, my adult children, is work ethic. And that the world's a tough place, and that you have to be a tough person. It's not how many people you beat up, it's not how many people you dictate to, not how many people's lives you affect, is that you have to understand at any given moment, something can happen, and you have to be that leader. That's what I learned from my father. He was not a nurturer, but he was a wonderful provider. My mother, on the other hand, my mother was I swear to God, I think she took boxing lessons, because a lot of people say, well, that's my right-hand man. My mom was a left-hand, right-hand hook. That's how she pushed out discipline. As children, we were recognized as being very polite, cognizant of our parents, and it shaped our decisions. Like, do I want to deal with that? Because I'm going to have to deal with my mother, and it's going to be painful. So I don't think I'm going to deal with that. And people understood that. As we got older, we started to form our own ideas, just like any teenager. Kind of went through a really, not a rebellious period, but for them it was rebellious. And ironically enough, even with their limited education, they didn't do or project like, we only finished this far in our education, so you really don't need to go further unless you want to. And on the other hand, what they did do is, you're going to college. I don't even think my mom could spell the word college even in Spanish. She just wasn't that educated, but she knew it was very important. So because of that, all of us were positioned and educated to attend college. My sister went to college 4 years. She graduated, I believe it was William and Mary in Virginia. She ended up with a master's somewhere in Chicago. And my brothers, they went to Rutgers University. I chose not to go at all, and the family did not want to be there when I told my father that. And I decided to do it on Thanksgiving. And my mother says, we don't want to be here. They got up, they left, and I had to sit there one-on-one with my father and tell him, I'm not going to college. At the same time, as I was growing up, I became a part-time father. I got my girlfriend pregnant. I became a part-time worker, because I was working at a convenience store from 4 to midnight, and I was working full-time for Johnson & Johnson Research and Development as a chemical lab technician. And I got to watch corporation on a massive scale that set the standard for me, like, I will never work below these standards. And it spoiled me. At this point, I'm 18, 19 years old. But I need to back up a little bit. While I was in parochial school, I went to St. Joseph's Metuchen, Brothers of the Sacred Heart. So you usually had like one priest and several brothers. They look like priests. They're wearing black cassocks. They got ropes around their waist. They got a heavy wooden cross on their chest. And they were very tough men, intellectually and physically. They ruled, and you abided by their rules. And they made sure you never forgot that. So it wasn't that far-fetched to think like, hey, you're not going to mouth off to Brother Robert. He's going to backhand you if you do that. And there's a lot of horror stories that came out of that kind of discipline, but I'm glad it happened, because the world is very difficult. Evil exists, and you're going to have to make certain decisions. And because of the value system they incorporated in me and they invested in me, on top of the value system my mom and dad invested in me, and not wanting to shame them, it worked, because I could have gone in so many different directions. So at 17, I decided I'm going to join the Army. I couldn't wait. I grew up watching TV, John Wayne movies, reading books. When I was in 8th grade, I was reading a saga by John Jakes. And informally, it's called The Kemp Family Chronicles. But it's about a bastard, and he reaches the American shore in the 1700s, and over a 100-year period, his family owns a publishing company, and now they're known as Americans. Great story. Each book was about 500 pages, and it set the tone for me what I wanted to do with my family. I'm like, I'm going to be like that. And they were involved in every milestone of American history. And so they would have little things that they would take away from their experiences, and they would put it on a mantle. And this shaped my young, youthful head, like, this is how I want to be. I'm the first American in my family. I speak English, I speak Spanish, and I want to be American. And that means I have to serve. I'm going to go to war. That's how black and white it was for me. And so at 17, I'm a junior in high school, and I can join the Army. And I realized I can do it in my junior year. So I turned 17 in December. I call up the recruiter. I'm 17. I want to join. He goes, well, you're 17. You're going to get your parents' signature. Okay, no problem. I'll call you back. Go to my mom and dad. My mom's like, do it. Dad's like, sure, why not? Go for it. So we do it. We signed the paperwork that January 1983. I am in the Army. That June, I left for basic training. I went and finished my high school year, came back, went to AIT, and I was an honor grad from the Army Corps Signal School at Fort Gordon. What's significant about this is I graduated bottom of my class. And I felt like intellectually I couldn't meet the standards that my family had put in front of me and my own brothers and sister. They were smarter than me. Bottom of my class in high school. Out of 235 students, I literally was 233. Some didn't even make it to high school graduation that day. They had to go to summer school. So I had this, I hate to say it, low self-esteem. But then I go into the Army, and I ended up becoming an honor graduate. And this is the first time I'm actually seeing what the world really is. And what I mean by that is I want to illustrate my point, is that there was an individual, I became very good friends with him. We hung out together. He was college educated and really nice guy. So it's 13 weeks of school, and you're literally, every week you're advancing. And if you don't make it that week, you're either recycled or you're out. And then the Army can do whatever they want with you. So I'm advancing every week. I know I'm doing okay. I just didn't realize how well I was doing until I'm in the final week. And the instructor comes up to me and is like, Martinez, this is what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna walk in there, you're gonna set up this loop, and you're gonna set up the computer, you're gonna run a message, you're gonna transcribe the message, you're gonna put it through this teletype, and then you're gonna transcribe the teletype, which is, it's a long tape with a series of holes. Each hole means something, like it's a word or a letter, and you run it through, and then you're just typing blindly like this. So I'm training as a telecommunications operator. And he tells me, if you get this right, you're gonna be the honor graduate. And I couldn't process that. All I heard was honor graduate. And the pressure was on. I was trembling the whole time. So he goes, you did it, brother. You're an honor graduate. You have a 98 average in the school. First time I ever had somebody tell me I was smart, but much later, it would be even better. I go back to my barracks and I tell this soldier that I hung around with, I was so proud and I wanted to share the experience with him. He opens up the door about this wide and he looks through it. And I thought it was kind of odd. And I said, Edgar, I'm going to be honor graduate. He goes, yeah, I heard. I'm college educated. I didn't even get that. It must be they're just taking care of you because he's Puerto Rican, you're Colombian. And he shut the door. I've never experienced that before. What I'm glad is I didn't see it as a white person doing me wrong. I just saw Edgar not sharing my happiness with me. So I didn't see it as a racist thing. I just couldn't even fathom that idea. Later on, to this day, I still don't think that's what it was, but maybe people outside looking in, maybe they saw it that way. I come back, I'm an honor graduate, I end up getting a job with Johnson & Johnson. I get my girlfriend pregnant. I become a part-time dad. I get a part-time job. I'm going to college, and I'm not really attending the county college. I'm doing it in name only, and I'm like, this is nowhere to go. It took me 5 years to arrive to that decision. And I thought, I'm gonna go active duty. I want my son to get medical benefits. I don't want to deal with research and development anymore. Because what a corporation does is when their products begin to fail or not sell at the level of expectation or forecast, they'll shut down research and development. And everyone involved in research and development will either be laid off or they'll deal with a skeletal crew just enough to keep the research and development going. So you, at the low tech level, you could be laid off. And I just didn't want to do that anymore after 4 years in that kind of field. And I decided, okay, I'm going to go active duty Army. I go up to the Army, like, hey, I'm in the Army National Guard. I just got promoted to E5, and I want to join the Army. And they're like, yeah, you're going to start as E1 because we don't recognize National Guard service. Mind you, this is 1987. So I'm like, what? And I really didn't like the National Guard. So I want to preface this by saying, this is my perception of the National Guard. It may not be the shared perception of everyone else in the Guard, but the Guard for me at that point was garbage. People were getting high. People were getting drunk. They were having barbecues at the armory. And I wanted to be in the Army. And that's why I went to military police, because I knew at some point or another I wanted to become a police officer. So I thought, well, they put out police. Well, let me go to that school. And I remember they said, do you want to go to the National Guard school or do you want to go to the regular Army school? I go, I'll go to the regular Army school. And I went to the regular Army school, graduated from there. And I'm still in the same boat. I'm hearing about Army Rangers. I'm hearing about Special Forces, Marines. And I thought to myself, I don't want to talk about these people that I know someone. I want to be one of them. So when the Army rejected me in terms of they weren't going to recognize my National Guard service, even though I've been to these regular Army schools and Army basic training, I thought, well, then I'll go with the Marine Corps. And I ended up becoming an 0311, 1988. Went to Paris Island. I went to Marine combat training. I went to the School of Infantry East, and I ended up becoming assigned to 1-6. I was in the Fleet Marine Force. And I was intimidated. It was Camp Geiger. So they had what we call Brick City. And it's just a quad and it's open squad bay. And you go to Camp Lejeune, and from Camp Lejeune, they bus you to Camp Geiger. And you step off the bus, and it's almost like a prison. People are leaning out the window, yelling. You got your sheet, you got your pillowcase, you got your personal gear, you're in your greens. And people are like, come here, boot. Come here, boot. It's very intimidating. You know, and I'm thinking to myself, where am I? So I realized very quickly, become the gray man and kind of watch around you. Don't make yourself known, observe, and find out what you just stepped into. And to me, it was a very violent world. When these guys would go drink, it was fights after fights. When these guys would come back, you're getting disciplined. And the Marine Corps will chew you up. They'll destroy you right on the spot. I learned that very quickly. So I decided, what else has the Marine Corps got to offer me? And I'm a reader. So I'm constantly walking by the board and I'm seeing what's up on the board and I'm reading and I see this paper, nondescript. And it says, we are looking for Spanish-speaking Marines who read it and write it. Come to this building on Camp Geiger. I'm like, that's right down the street. So one afternoon, I find myself alone, and they say, hey, if you have anything to take care of, now's the time to go do it. I thought, great. So I walked across the parking lot. I went down the street towards SOI and MCT, and it's a Kwanzaa hut. It's open, and I see this man, and he's overweight. He's got a bushy mustache. He's kind of being arrogant. And he says, can I help you? And I was like, yes. I'm here to inquire about a piece of paper I saw on my barracks that they're looking for Spanish-speaking Marines. He goes, you're Latino? I'm like, yes. He goes, where are you from? I said, well, I'm from America, but my parents are Colombian, and I speak and read and write Spanish because my mom taught me how to speak it, and I was considered a fluent speaker in high school, so I took advanced Spanish in high school. He didn't believe me. So he hands me a Spanish paper. He says, read that. So I open it up and I start reading. He goes, no, out loud. So I read it to him out loud. And he says, tell me what you just said. So I basically give him an interpretation. I don't literally translate it. I just give him an interpretation of the article. He goes, we'll be in contact with you. Go back to your unit. I'm okay. He goes, let your company commander know you're down here. I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. And I walk and I'm stressed. Well, I got selected to be part of a unit that they called Detachment 21 Alpha. And I find myself in Honduras in 1989. And my first mission was running patrols with Hondurans along the Nicaraguan border to maintain observation on troop movement in Nicaragua. Some of us were positioned on an island that we called Tiger Island. And again, we would provide infantry training for their soldiers, but they were also mutually providing training for us. So we learned about jungle operations. And I ended up doing 2 missions down there for 3 months each time. And then on the 3rd time I was in Central America, that same year, I ended up following the invasion of Panama. I'd already been jungle operations trained. I already went to Jungle Operations Training Center in Panama, Fort Sherman, with the Marine Corps. Now we were returning for the invasion. I didn't see any combat. There was always the threat of combat. I was carrying a loaded weapon. We were conducting patrols near this air base that was owned by the U.S. Air Force, and nothing happened. We come back home. They send me to Mountain Warfare School, and they say, hey, 1-6 is pushing out to do a Westpac float. We didn't call them deployments. We didn't call them anything. It was just a float. So I go out on this float. I'm in Okinawa. I'm there having a good time. I liked Okinawa. I get myself qualified level 1 swimmer because I wanted to go to the scout. I wanted to become a water safety survival instructor because they had these black hoodies and you get to wear UDT shorts and jungle boots all day long. I was like, that's me. I want to do that. I don't care. So I would do pull-ups every morning, get strong, running. And one day they say, hey man, you're going out on a ruck march on a Sunday. So be ready for that. So we go out on this ruck march. I'm having a little tough time because I'm a little hungover and I'm sunburned from hanging out on the beach. We come back and they have the whole battalion formed up. And I've never seen that before from any ruck march. Usually it's just down to the company level. And they have us in a U shape and the colonel comes out, Colonel Livingston. It is, gents, Saudi Arabia stands to be invaded. Kuwait has already been invaded by Saddam Hussein, the Iraqi dictator. That meant nothing to me. Everyone's like, okay, where's Kuwait? I didn't even know that country existed. Saudi Arabia, I read that in books. What's going on? But the excitement was in the air. It was almost, it's like people are cheering, like, yeah, we're gonna do it, we're going to war. I'm like, okay. I go, why? What does that have to do with us? But hey, I'm a Marine, this is what we do, let's go. And I end up landing in Kuwait. The invasion happened on August 3rd, 1990. And September 13th, I landed in Saudi Arabia, and I went to Camp Daly. I remember that we were living in these green tents. Everybody, a squad was in there. We had cots laid out, our weapons were laid out, our gear was laid out. Back then it was one duffel bag, a ruck, and what you're carrying on yourself. That's it. And so I realized we're speed bumps. 82nd is pushing out to the Saudi Arabian line, U.S. Marine Corps. We're part of 3rd Marine Division at that point because we're coming from Okinawa. We're pushing out to the line, and we're expecting the Iraqis to continue the invasion into Saudi Arabia to seize the oil fields. Well, that position turned into 10 months. I did 10 months of field operation out there. I was living in a hole. The ground war erupted in January of '91. And at that point, we were living above the ground. They had brought us cots, and you can hear the bombing going on. You can hear the low rumbles, a real low rumble. It went on for 44 days, I think. About that time, February rolls around, and like we're executing the ground war. Now all this time we've been training for it. I had been selected to open up a lane, but I needed to clear it of minefields. So my job was to lay on my stomach with a bayonet, push my arms out, and start forking the sand looking for the mine, tagging it, and then keep moving and tagging it, and hopefully open up a lane. There were several of us that were selected to do that. The other thing that the Marines were getting constantly drilled into their head was chemical warfare. So we were always training and at some MOP level. There's 4 of them, but never as a whole. On the day of the ground invasion, the sky was black. And you could look at the horizon, it was like a blue line. And I didn't know it at the time, or I couldn't process it, or I don't remember it as I saw it in terms of like what was happening. But basically, Saddam Hussein had opened up the oil pipelines, set them on fire, and it blackened out the sky. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's no more sun. It's just a black sky. And I remember they came, they brought in the AAVs, the assault vehicles, and we had been training with them, so we knew what to do. We knew how to help them with the maintenance. We knew how to load up the guns. We knew how to stage our rucks on the outside. We understood what was going to happen on the inside. And they put us in a circle at the squad level. And the NC goes, look, here's what's going to happen. First, I'm going to read you a message from the division commander. And it was inspiring, basically telling us we're the next chapter in American Marine Corps history. And we are going to experience victory, and it's going to cost us dearly. But the torch has been passed to you. Do not let your brothers down. Essentially, that's what it's saying. I was like, that's pretty cool. Then the NCO goes, gentlemen, look to your left, look to your right. They're expecting 50% casualty rate. You are the first wave. So we're going to drive up, we're going to breach the berm, we're going to unload you, and you kill everything that's in front of you. Everything dies. All right, it's pretty simple. We load back up, we go to an assembly area, we're outside hanging around, and we're going to kick this off about, I don't know, sometime between midnight and 4 in the morning. We load back up, we start rumbling. I'm in Alpha Company 1-6. Bravo Company has the lead. I'm listening to the radio, and it's completely black inside, and I can see this red bulb. And every time the red bulb would light up, there's a transmission going to the radio. And I'm hearing Bravo Company has breached. 2 of the tanks, Marine tanks, have exploded. I'm hearing like a pounding, like a rain hitting our vehicle. Well, it wasn't rain. The Iraqis were shooting at us. And all I hear is the gunner going, boom, 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 boom. He's got a 50 cal up there. I hear the vehicle commander giving commands. And Bravo Company is like, we're entering the first line of trenches. And for the first time, a Marine Corps unit is cheering on another unit because we're so territorial, it's crazy. Like Charlie Company can't go into Alpha Company's AO. You can't even be seated next to us. That's just looking for a fight. So we already occupy a piece of land, that's ours. It's Alpha 1-6. And so there was always this rivalry that would get violent at times. But now we're cheering them on. And suddenly I'm experiencing the brotherhood on a different level. And I'm like, come on, Bravo, kill them all. I'm like, go for it, man. And you're hearing them, they're getting in there. Like, we're hitting the trench, we're inside the trench. And then it would go black again. And all of a sudden, that 2,000-pound metal door drops. And my team leader was a Tex-Mex. Never seen this Mexican this tall in my life, ever. He's 6'2", 230 pounds, and he has his foot on the back. And when the events unfolded, it almost looked like he was so big and so strong, he had opened up the back. And that thing just slammed to the ground. We come out behind it. We know that they're facing the enemy from our training. I'm hearing the gunner go, and we start the assault. We come in front, squad leader gets in, move forward, guns are going. All I can see to my left and right is Marines in front of the AAVs, the gunners delivering hell. Harriers just whipping past us. There was helos in the air. Everything's going. Like the Marine Corps had unleashed hell, and it was overwhelming. And the demons, we were all over it. And I'm running up to the, couldn't even see a trench line. So what they did was they would build trenches, but they wouldn't put the dirt in front. So you didn't see that parapet and you didn't see that buildup. It just looked like a flat desert. And the Israelis had taught us that when you first start charging, start walking towards it. And as you get closer, you pick up into a run. And so that's what we did. And I know it's the Israelis that taught us, because when the planners came, they're like, hey, this is the tactics we understand that the Israelis employed against the Egyptians and during the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War. I'm like, sounds good to me. I know those guys. So we kind of mimicked it. I get in the trench line. I'm a 249 guy. And I'm hearing guns go off. I'm hearing hand grenades go off. They're like, pass up your hand grenades. I'm seeing the Overwatch from our M60s going. And the lead guy's carrying this flag. So that tells the machine gunner, stay in front of that flag as he's delivering that deadly fire. Because behind that flag is just a squad of infantry Marines. So we're stagnant for a moment, and I look out into the desert, and I see something shiny. And I look down the trench line. There's no Marines there. It's open, so I take my 249, I swing it around. I'm like, wow, my 249 is light. I must be strong as hell. I'm like, wow, Marine Corps. And I look down, no rounds. That shiny object that I saw out there was my rounds. The drum had separated, and then they spread my rounds out, and they were sunny side up. And my lieutenant's like, Martinez, put fire down that trench line. Nothing lives. Kill it all. I'm like, sir, I got to get more rounds. They're in my ruck. He's like, no, where are your rounds, Marine? I go, out there. He goes, go get it. And I was like, I just crossed that deadly ground. I stand up, I run out into the open again. I get down, I throw those 1,000 rounds kind of Pancho Villa style over me. I come running up, and I'm like, cleaning off my rounds. I put it in there, and I start loading. Boom. I'm putting down rounds down the range to keep them off our 6. And we're throwing hand grenades. We clear the trench line. We get back into the AAV. AAV goes, we're coming up on the second trench line. But they're not giving much resistance. So what that AAV driver was told, run them over. So we ran them over. And when we got on top of the trench line, it would move back and forth like this. And it was burying what it was ever in that hole. And then we set off a daisy chain of chemical mines, nerve and mustard. They're like, Mach 4, gas, gas, gas. So we put on our gas mask, put on our gloves. And I'm like, holy cow. And I see this kid, his eyes are really big, man. And he didn't do the 2 years with us. He didn't go to jungle school. He didn't go to mountain warfare school. This is it, SOI and a real world invasion. And I was like, Kiko, it's gonna be a dirty war, but we're good, man, we're good. And we unload again. We're out there in Mach 4. And they clear it. And turns out the rain was going not against us, but with us. So when those chemicals went up in the air, it activated our units to alert us that there was gas, but it pushed it right back into the Iraqis. And because it was sand, it was getting absorbed very quick. And because it was raining oil with water, it was, well, the way I understood and the way they explained it to my Marine mind, it saturated the area and drove it back into the ground. And we stayed like that for 4 days. 96 hours later, the war is over, and we're back. And I got 3 racks of ribbons on my chest. I'm like, whoa, I'm a stud. Because my first year in the Marine Corps, watching Marines get out after 4 years, sometimes they had 1 ribbon, sometimes 2, overseas and good conduct. And it wasn't the good conduct that I was seeing there. It was just that overseas ribbon. I'm like, that's it? 4 years, that's all we get? Now I'm coming back with a combat action ribbon, and I'm coming back with campaign ribbons, all kinds of ribbons. It was definitely like 2.5 stack. And I was a stud. I was fit. I was combat experienced. Everything they taught me, it worked. And I spent 10 months in that country. I came back in April 1991. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I'm gonna make the Marine Corps a career. But I'm kind of feeling it, like I'm invincible. I do whatever I want. And a couple of the guys come up to me and like, Martinez, you ever thought, you know, what are you gonna do? You gonna get out? You got another year left. I'm like, a little over a year, maybe a little over a year. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm gonna sign up and I'm gonna become a drill instructor. That's what I wanna do. I wanna train Marines. And I'm sitting there and I'm hanging out with a bunch of Marines and this officer walks over. And he goes, hey, Lance Corporal Martinez, can I talk to you a second? I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Did I hit him in a bar? What did I do? Did one of my guys get in a fight? I'm just going through my Rolodex. That's an old term for filing. And I'm like, what happened? And I sit down, and he's looking at me, and this officer in particular, everybody knew him to be a killer. He was slaying people out there in the first Iraqi war. So he was highly respected, and we all knew him. He was very proud that he had graduated from Auburn. I don't even know where that university is to this day, but I just remember that when he was in civilian clothes or going to the gym, he always had his hoodie on that he was an Auburn graduate. I guess it's something pretty cool. And he says, hey, look, you're gonna get in trouble in conventional unit. You're a smart guy. We can make you stronger, but we can't close the gap on intelligence as fast. So we want smart guys. So have you ever considered becoming a scout sniper? And to be perfectly honest, I was intimidated. And those guys were scary to me. And they were violent. They were known to be violent in Lejeune, off Lejeune, all around violent men. And they were big boys. And I already had a capacity for violence. I already had 2 confirmed kills in the war. And I knew that killing people, to be honest, didn't really bother me. So I knew I was good to go. But I wasn't a violent person when I didn't, like, you would have to catch me in the moment for me to really put a hurting on you. But if time passed and I'm not in that moment anymore, then I don't need to hurt you and you don't need to try to hurt me. Let's just let bygones be bygones. So I knew I wasn't in that level of violence yet. And he says, you're gonna get in trouble, I'm telling you, Martinez. I go, well, who's running that? And how does it work? He goes, well, you try out. I think you'll make it. Your scores are really good. I was a 285 in my PT score. And he said, I learned that the chief scout is your former senior drill instructor. Now, I didn't know his name, but I knew the caliber of this Marine. And he literally looked like Christopher Walken. Thin, big blue eyes, pale skin, had that, there's just something demonic in him. You just couldn't figure out what it was, and even to this day, I don't have the words to express it. And when he would come down the aisle, as when I was a recruit, he would whistle the good, the bad, the ugly. I can't even whistle, so I'm not gonna even try. And it was frightening to me, it was intimidating, but it was the Lord of the Marine Corps. He was living the myth. So he was now the chief scout. I'm like, I'll work for that, man. He goes, well, you gotta try out, so go for it. 3 weeks, I passed selection, and actually it's not even called selection, it's called indoctrination. So indoc, in short. So I passed the indoc, 3 weeks, basically 3 weeks of hazing. They test you on your intellectual abilities by understanding how a 5-paragraph order is written, what it consists of, and how much do you know of infantry tactics? Even though you've been infantry, do you understand the science behind it? Most important thing was reading a map, being able to do resection, insection, move from one point to the other, know your pace count in different environments. And you could basically open up the map, they walk up to you and like, tell me where you are, point, tell me where you're going. Okay. Sometimes they yell at you, sometimes they wouldn't, sometimes they stay quiet, but the whole time they're evaluating you through this 3 week, and it's nonstop. You're sleep deprived, you're wet and cold, even though it's North Carolina, even in the cool summer morning, it gets cold because you're wet and you're miserable. And when you're tired, it just makes you that much more sensitive to the elements. At one point, they had on the land, they have a point in the middle of the water in the swamp. And you had to go out there and figure out what that number and that letter was. I was like, oh man, come on. But you go out there and you do it. Anyway, that training, along with the Marine Corps pre-training for sniper school, was amazing. And I thought to myself, why aren't they teaching it like this at the SOI? As I grew older, I started to realize not everybody's on the same learning level. And that's why they have these guys. The other thing was, I went from being an Army National Guard marksman to a Marine Corps sharpshooter to a Marine Corps expert sniper. Now, I want to be clear on this. The Marine Corps community would identify me as being a pig. That means professionally instructed gunman. That means literally, you've been instructed by professional killers. And when you go to school, you graduate, and supposedly you get the hog's tooth. It's just the bullet of a match grade round, 308, 7.62, and they drill a hole through it, and you get a 550 cord through it. And you're a hog, hunter of gunmen. I never made it to the school because they said they wanted me to re-enlist for 3 more years. I was like, I am a corporal. I make $9,000 a year. I want to have a family. I do not want to live on food stamps. I do not want to see my children struggle. I grew up that way. Let me go to the school. Let me enlist or extend my contract for 1 more year. I'll go on the float. I'll come back and then I'll get out. And they're like, nope, 3 years or you're out. I'm like, that's not going to work for me. We'll give you 3 years. You go to the sniper school, sign on the paper. Nope, and you're out. And I left. So it's 1992. I have a son. I have an on and off relationship with his mother. Most of the time it wasn't working, doesn't matter why. And I'm about to start a career with the police department. I started as a dispatcher. 6 months later, they offered me the position of police officer. And I stayed with them for almost 15 years, to be exact, 14 years, 7 months. And during that time, I was in the patrol division. I was on what we call emergency response team, West Coast calls SWAT team. I was a police sniper instructor. And I also was trained for Special Victims Unit. We had created our own on our small police department. And what I learned from the days of my days working as a lab technician was integrity. Meaning, because I worked for engineers and scientists, what I saw in front of me evolving, I would have to write a narrative. And I was constantly reminded, if you see it, write it. Don't give us what we want to hear. Just write it. Because the moment, if we can't duplicate that formula based on your observations, then you must have lied or you must have embellished, and we'll get rid of you. So that became very critical. As much as I wanted the product to work, I need to make sure that I just write what I saw. When I went in and became a Marine Scout Sniper, they said the same thing. They said, hey, most of our missions are reconnaissance-based. Being a sniper is just part of that. So if you only see one set of tracks, one tire, don't call it a roadway. And don't say you saw a truck out there. You just report you saw a set of tracks and one tire. Because the moment that you lie or you embellish or you make it more than it is, and we waste time, money, and effort on that, and we realize based on your reporting, you're out. Go into the police department. Same thing, integrity. Write the report, be truthful, go to court, say exactly what you said, what you stated in the incident, and stay within the realm of the report as you wrote it, because the moment that you lie or you're found to be lying, you lose all credibility and you are useless to us and you're out. So I go through this period in my life. I do 15 years. I'm married now to another woman. I have 2 more children. I'm making a lot of money. I went from making $9,000 to $111,000 in a very short time. I'm living the life that I never imagined. I'm living in Princeton, New Jersey. And in 2001, I'm now on the bicycle patrol. I'm on the SWAT team. I am in the Army National Guard. I just signed up because our SWAT team had gotten disbanded. And so I had this set of skills that I wanted to maintain proficiency on. So I said, well, the Army has snipers, so I'm going to find a sniper unit. And I was driving 200 miles to Massachusetts to maintain that proficiency. And I'm in Krav Maga. So I'm in the police department was paying for it all, including Krav Maga. So we would train at the fire department. It's a sunny day, beautiful morning. It's about, I don't know, 8:45, because train's gonna kick off at 09, and the radio goes dead. I'm like, that's odd. I'm thinking, I just got this truck. I can't believe it. The radio won't even work. And then Howard Stern comes on. And he's not making sense, and I shut it off. I pull into the fire station. We got the mats roll out. We're ready to do a little rolling, some boxing, training. We're warming up, and this police car comes roaring in at fast speed, and this officer gets out, and she says, a plane just crashed into the Twin Towers, one of the buildings. I'm like, wow, it's a beautiful day. Like, what's going on with that? But we're like, let's keep training. But people were distracted with this news, and she seemed shooken up, and she left. So they're like, all right, let's go see what's going on. We turn on the news, and as we turn it on, there's this huge screen. It's the kind of screen where it has 3 different bulb colors, and it projects to the screen, and you see the image on the screen. So it's not like flat screen that we imagine today. It's probably its predecessor. And it's the Twin Towers, and one of them is smoking. I'm like, how did a pilot hit the buildings? That doesn't make sense. And out of the right side of the screen, you see another jetliner, and it disappears, and my brain wasn't processing. I'm like, oh, it must have flown between the 2 buildings, and this fireball erupts. We're getting attacked. And I'm looking around. Even now, I still get it. And this fireball erupts, and we get our stuff together. Like, everybody's picking up the gear. I'm thinking they're gonna put the team back together. We're probably gonna end up moving towards New York City, because New York City is going to be chaotic. It's a city of nearly 10 million at that point. And their emergency service teams are probably involved in rescue efforts. And I get back in my truck, I'm headed home, get my gear together. I still had it, and I hear, and the radio comes on, and it says, all National Guardsmen report their armories. I'm like, holy cow. So I call up the police department. I can't come to the police department. We've been called out. I have to report to Fort Dix. So I report to Fort Dix. At this point, I had just transferred from Massachusetts to New Jersey National Guard because it wasn't working out. Me traveling, I was looking at divorce, and I wanted to be closer to home. I ended up reporting to Fort Dix. Long story short, I get kicked out of the Guard on September 13th. Because I got into an argument with my platoon sergeant and my lieutenant, how they were handling business. I got mouthy, and they're like, if you want to go back to your police department, I'm like, yes, my police department is ready to roll towards Liberty State Park. I want to go back. You have me watching here, parking lot. We have a 3-line defense, state police, MPs, and us. And you want to tell me I'm the eyes and ears? Go F yourself. So they're like, get your gear and get out. No repercussions. Police department suspends me for 10 days without pay. And I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. And I just focus on my career. 2003 rolls around. It's January. I'm working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I come into the station, I put out my movers, my parkers, and my radar. We had 3 categories. We have a quota, but technically we don't. But if you put out these 3 categories, you're pretty much left alone. So you just do what you got to do. And that's the reality on the ground. I don't care what anybody says. So I come in, I'm really excited. It's midnight, or a little after midnight. I'm like, I'm good to go. I just have to wait for a call to come in and respond. And I'm sitting there, I'm writing my notes, I'm making sure I'm accurate, and I hear a call. Home invasion at such and such an address, in progress. I'm like, holy cow, that's unheard of in Princeton. It's my zone. I race out there. I can't find the house because these homes, their front yard is over hundreds of meters before you even reach the house. Their driveways are 300 meters long in some cases. Sometimes they have more than one dwelling on the property. They'll have the main house and 2 smaller houses. And it's dark, it's all woods. And I stop my car and I'm like trying to figure out what street it is. I look behind me and I see this car caught between a tree and a boulder. I'm like, that's a car accident. So I run over there and make sure nobody's hurt. It's clear. 2 more units show up. I'm like, it's one of those 3 houses, but there's no numbers. I said, why don't we each take a house? I said, I'm going to grab that one back there. And I can't find the driveway to lead me to the house. It's that dark. And I don't want to illuminate myself. My tactics are kicking in. And I go over the fence, I'm in the woods, and I hear the radio dispatcher say, hey, perpetrators are exiting the house, they're coming down the driveway. And I can see that it's the house that I'm approaching through the woods. I'm like, okay. So I stop. I'm like, I got a pretty big, deep voice. My voice is bigger than my body. I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm in the woods. They're on a driveway. They're going to silhouette themselves. They're going to hear my booming voice. I'm going to stop them. They're going to comply. Another day. And as I'm formulating this plan, I see movement in my front. I turn on my flashlight and I see this young man in a white t-shirt, blue jeans, and Tim's. And he's holding a steak knife, and it is literally dripping blood. It is just dripping blood. And his white t-shirt has splashes of blood on him. And his face is in full contortion, projecting rage. I've never seen anything like this at that close proximity. And he's about as close to you as you are to me right now, about 7 feet. And it happened so fast. I shut off my flashlight, I vacate that spot, and he goes charging right for it. And to my left, I see another police officer that have followed me, and he occupies what I just vacated, and they confront each other. And I realized they're in a critical moment. So I learned this in the Marine Corps. And in my mind, I went into full fighter mode. I button hook. And as I'm coming in and out, so if you were my target, I'm moving to your left, my right. I'd come behind you in the darkness, and now I'm on the opposite side. And as I'm reaching that side, the officer's on his back, the perpetrator is over him, and a gunshot goes off between them. I don't know who fired. So I have my gun out, and I blew his head off. And he died right on the spot. 2 shots, one to the head, one to the chest. I changed mags, put it in my back pocket, and I radioed it in. Shots fired, I'm proceeding to the house. And he turned out he was the only guy in there, but he had stabbed the homeowner 12 times. But the homeowner had 14 holes in him because the knife, when it was going through him, was going through his chest and coming out his back. And he had broke the part of the blade off on the floor, and there was blood everywhere. It smelled like a butcher shop. And I remember I could see blood, and in my mind, it looked like a fish tank, and there was blood going down into the water like kind of slow. That's what I remember. How accurate that is, I really don't know. 2:09 in the morning, I think it was 26 degrees outside, snow. They had isolated me. Everything was over. They put me in the back of a police car. They had taken my gun away. They had taken my flashlight away. I remember they were very kind to me. They moved me into a closed area. They left me alone. I ended up being there till 11 in the morning talking to the prosecutor's office because at that point, state police had come in. They brought in a forensics team. They set up lasers. They were trying to project where the shots came from, how he was killed. They did this full-blown criminal investigation that morning. They also brought in the prosecutor's office to interview me. And I felt confident in what I did, but I was very, very upset. First time I've ever taken a life in that close proximity. So at this point, I'm in the National Guard, and we get notified. Hey, man, we got a mission to support Operation Enduring Freedom. The war's already been going on. They called me that spring. They're like, hey, when we booted you out, there was a mistake made, and you were never supposed to get booted out. So we're asking you, do you want to complete your contract with us? And I said, hey, man, I've been out for 2 years. And now you want me back in? You made me feel terrible. And like, yeah, we're really sorry about that. And I said, I'll only come back if I go to an infantry unit. And we're going across the water because Iraq had already been invaded. So I know it was like after March. So I'm like, okay. Yeah, you got it, because we are going. I'm like, great. Sign me an infantry unit, I'm on my way. I am now 38 years old. They make me an E4 corporal. They send me to Fort Wisconsin in May, and I wouldn't come home till 27 months later. I ended up in Egypt, did time in Israel, the Sinai, and 3 months after that assignment, I was in Ramadi, Iraq, and that changed my life forever. It is the year 2005, January. We had come back from the MFO mission, the Multinational Force and Observer mission. I'm on Title 10, meaning active duty. And I'm at Fort Dix. It's a homecoming coming. We had literally landed. It's raining, mixed with some snow. We're up on the barracks. We're coming down the staircase. It's wet. People are excited. They're going to see their family for the first time in 10 months. And as we're coming down the staircase, I see a choke hold, a bottleneck happening at the bottom of the staircase as you go out the doors. And I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? They're like, Pennsylvania National Guard is going to Iraq. They are short infantry. They're looking for infantry guys. So I'm an infantry unit. And in that span of 15 feet, as I'm approaching the door, there's that legal white paper binder, and there's names being put on there. And I'm looking out the door, I could see the rain, I could see the snow, and in my eyes, I think I could see my family. I have a stepson at that point, so there's 4 of them out there, and my wife. And there's that paper. And in that short span of distance, of no more than probably from this back wall behind me to that garage, I make a decision. I add my name. I sign it. 86 names went on that paper. 25 of us would step on that plane. And we land in Mississippi with the 28th IBCT, led by the brigade commander at the time was Colonel Gronsky, who's now a general, retired. We trained there for 3 months. And they were already 3 months into their 6-month train-up to go to Ramadi. The training was substandard. The training did not match our working conditions in Iraq. To illustrate that point, they had us at an entry control point with lights on, barbed wire, few sandbag positions, and it was nothing like that. If we had practiced any of the things they had taught us, most of us would probably be dead or wounded, if not all of us. It was just pathetic. The only good training that we got out of there was at the conventional level. At the conventional level was, I'm sorry, it escapes me at the moment. I got to zero my weapon. I decided to focus on my aim point, and they gave us PEC 15s. They didn't even train us on it. I didn't even know what it was. And this would come back to haunt me later in Ramadi. We're put in a replacement company, and that replacement company gets broken up to feed the needs of the 28th IBCT. So some of us are going to specific units. And at the time, I had just made E5, and I was 40 years old. Yeah, I was 40 years old. I get assigned to this tank company. Literally, they were tankers, 3rd of the 103rd Alpha Company, and they've been redesignated to become infantrymen. And they had no clue. They had a few scouts in there, and this one high-speed E6 was running a sniper section. And they said, hey, Martinez, you're going to be a gunner in a Humvee. And I'm like, well, those things aren't going to stop bullets. And I'm not a heavy weapons guy. At this point, I'm a police sniper instructor. I went to the FBI sniper school, 3 weeks. I did Marine Corps sniper school after the Marine Corps. They actually sent us down there. I have H&K, 4 weeks of sniper school, taught by Marines, FBI snipers, Ted Hollenbaugh, Johnson, who's a madman, great student. Another guy named Jim Owens, legends in the Marine Corps, teaching at the H&K Division, International Division School. And so I have about 10 weeks of training. And I'm an armor in 3 different weapons, all organic to infantry weapons, Beretta, Remington, and Colt. So I realize I'm an outsider in this Army National Guard unit. It's evident they don't really trust us, they don't know us, and we're just bodies to make up them for their lack of numbers. Because apparently a tank company, and I'm not a tanker, they're about 80. An infantry company is about a little over 100, my understanding. So I take it upon myself, I go to the battalion, and I tell them, hey, look, you have a sniper section, and they don't know what they're doing, and none of them have been to sniper school. I'm a police SWAT. I was a Marine sniper. Here's all my credentials. I got all my paperwork. I went in there prepared to convince them to let me be a leader. And the Sergeant Major goes, well, I believe in putting people where they belong. So I'll tell you what, sit outside my office. I'm going to call in this first sergeant who's an Army sniper, and he's going to review your documents. And he's also on the state police with Pennsylvania, and he's a police SWAT sniper. All right? I'm like, okay. They call me back in. It's almost an hour had gone by, and there's this tall, beefy looking, looks like a trooper still in an Army uniform. And he goes, this is you? I'm like, yes. He goes, what police department? I tell him. And he goes, how big is that department? I said, 35. He goes, and you did all this? I'm like, yes. I said, I'll give you the name of my chief. I'll give you the police department number. You get his name. You can have a conversation. He goes, no, I'm just amazed. He goes, you're more qualified than I am as a police sniper. And I was like, cool. Do I get the job? He's like, it's yours. So I'm going to contact the company commander, and you're going to be the sniper section leader. And in walks this gentleman, tall, dignified, screaming officer, meaning he looks like an officer, ranger tabbed, and his name is Captain Inch. It's been brought to his attention. And he goes, hey, look, we're going to Ramadi. It's a hotly contested area. We need snipers, and we're barely able to meet that requirement. You're a sniper instructor. Can you train my battalion snipers? I'm like, yes, I can do it. I said, let me work it up. Let me present the curriculum. He goes, no, just make it happen. I'll be in touch with you. So I go back to the company and they have a formation. And they're calling the whole company in formation. And as I'm going into the formation, the first sergeant looks at me and goes, you stand outside the formation. Stay right there by this door. And he begins to lecture the company about breaking chain of command. I knew it was about me. I didn't care. I'm going anyway. I already had the sign off, but I wanted to get along with them too. So I just kept it to myself because I already learned my lesson the hard way in 2001. I'm not going to repeat that. And Captain turns around and goes, follow me into my office. And he begins to lecture me like, why would you do that? You should have talked to me. And I was like, sir, let me know when I have a chance to speak because you're just throwing questions at me and I feel like you just want me to listen. But I have a valid explanation. He goes, okay, let me hear it. I said, you would have done the same thing. I'm telling you, I know what I'm doing. I'm telling you, I'm educated in this field. I'm telling you, you're about to go into a terrible place and you're gonna need people like me. If you were me with my qualifications, you would have done the same thing. That's what we do. We stand up and we tell you, let me do it. He goes, well, I'm gonna let you do it. Just don't ever do it like that again. He turned out to be a great captain, Captain Carney, Pennsylvania State Police, because the other guy was a first sergeant in the state police, so they talked. Anyway, we go through the train up and we land in Iraq. And I remember we flew in and this plane just dumps. And it's trying to avoid being blown out of the sky. They just come in high and just drop. It was like a roller coaster ride. We end up in TQ. I can't even pronounce it, to be honest. It's a Marine Corps base. And as we're going from one place to another on this base, I see this cross. And it says, killed in action, had his first name, Martinez. And the cross is next to a dumpster. I'm like, that's an odd place. The Marine goes, that's where he was killed. So that's why you see crosses throughout the base like that. And I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, they're outside the wire. He goes, they're out there. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, is that an omen? I was raised under superstition, even though I'm Catholic. I was like, is that an omen? I'm like, put it out of your mind, Martinez, keep going. So I have trained the battalion. I've been given a sniper section, 7 men. They sent us to NTC, and now I'm here at TQ, Ramadi. And they tell us, hey, we're going, and our advance party already in Ramadi has gotten hit. I'm like, okay. So they load us in the back of the vehicle because they want to transport us at night to avoid being hit by enemy snipers or ambush. I'm not even understanding the IED situation. We roll through. We got steel on the back of this Humvee. It's like, don't poke your head up overside. You'll get hit. They'll shoot you. And if a bomb goes off, this steel is going to protect you. It's what it's designed for. We don't know too much about the bottom, but we're standing on sandbags or sitting on sandbags, and we're all crouched behind. We pull into this gate. We go through like an S shape, pull into the gate, and that next morning I realized we're on a college campus, and it's called Camp Corregidor. Now that name doesn't really mean much to anybody, but history told me Corregidor was the last place Marine forces held against the Japanese before they surrendered in the battle for the Philippines. So I'm like, is this an omen? That's not a good place to be in history. Am I repeating history here again? And right across this roadway that had a median was this thing they called Combat Outpost. It's 2005. And 100 people got selected, and it's called Animal Company, the tank company, got selected to go to Corregidor to supplement the effort, the fighting effort, with 3rd ID, 3rd Infantry Division, 269. And as I get off and unload my gear, they're like, you're gonna be in that building, you're gonna be in that building. I'm sitting there, and they come up to me at some point and they inform me that my NCOs have quit. They're not doing this. They're not gonna become snipers. They don't wanna do it. And with them, they take their Pensy boys and they say they're not gonna do this either. So I go up to my room. It's a classroom. It's been converted into dorms. I'm sitting in my corner and I'm like, I'm gonna be standing tower guard for a year with these guys. And I get called from the classroom to go see the platoon sergeant. He's laying in his bunk. He's got this terrible mustache, receding hairline. He's got a book in front of him. He's got his little AC unit. He's like, you're gonna be on tower guard 4 hours, midnight to 4. Any questions? I'm like, no. Because dismissed. And I'm bad-mouthing him all the way. I go pull my tower guard duty. I'm looking out into the city of Ramadi. I'm like, where's the enemy? It's dark. There's a few lights that can be seen, but it's virtually a dark city. Like nothing's moving out there. Like it's the set so that the audience can understand what I'm looking at. It could have been the setting for The Walking Dead. There's no movement out there, and it smells. And if you know anything about decomposition, it's carrying that smell in the air. I could smell it, along with the garbage and the sewage. But there was no mistaking the smell of decomposition. So the next morning I wake up and I go to the chow hall and they're serving us food from mermites, and it's breakfast. And it looks literally like someone had defecated and produced these things that resemble sausage and these wet eggs on a piece of paper, and they hand it to me. I walk out, I throw it in the garbage. Apparently I wasn't the only one thinking like that. It's filled. And I'm walking by animal headquarters, the Pennsylvania National Guard's headquarters. There's only 100 of us. The rest of the brigade either went to Camp Ramadi, which is, you're part of staff and operations, you're going there, which is on the west side of town. And the rest of the brigade went to Al-Assad. That's how I remember it. So there's only 100 of the PA guys on this Camp Corregidor. And they're like, look, Martinez, because I've been called into headquarters. They're like, we don't know what to do with you. Nobody likes you. They really don't trust you. There's a unit here, 3rd ID, that has a sniper section. Why don't you go talk to them? So 3rd ID is ripping out the 503. I don't know what division they come from. I just remember it's a 503. They have the Indian head with the shield. And I go find their sniper section. I wake them up. Team leader gets up and says, hey man, what's up? I'm like, hey man, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the sniping. He goes, just don't go out there in 2-man teams, you'll be killed. And he goes back to sleep. So I go report, I'm like, yeah, I didn't get much movement with that. He goes, well, 3rd ID has a sniper section. Go talk to them. Your point of contact is Staff Sergeant Gilliland. I'm like, okay. And it's in a building. And it's called Full Metal Jacket. I'm like, okay. I'm like, where is it? I'm like, just go over there. It's the most modern looking building that's been blown up and hit, and it's full of bullet holes. Full Metal Jacket. I'm like, okay. I go through this hole in the wall, and there's 2 soldiers in there, and they're painting long rifles, bolt guns. And as I'm walking, I can see them, I stop. I'm like, be humble, be humble, be humble. You're there to help them. This isn't about you. You lost your entire section. It's just you. So be humble. So I walk through the hole, they look up, they continue painting. They're in DCUs, brown t-shirts. And it turns out to be a guy named H, out of respect to his privacy. And H looks at me and goes, how can I help you? I go, hey, my name is Sergeant Martinez. I just came with the Pennsylvania National Guard. I'm Scout Sniper. I don't have my bolt gun with me, it hasn't arrived yet, but I have my primary rifle, and I'm a Scout Sniper from the Marine Corps. I'm a sniper instructor, and I just want to see if you have a position for me. He goes, hold on a second. Gets on the radio, ICOMs. I hear this voice on the other end, Shadow 6. And he says, yeah, he says he wants to come out on a mission with us. And I hear the other voice go, sweet. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. He goes, all right, roger that. Hey, man, be here at midnight. Bring your weapon. I go, can I bring another guy? He goes, you got other guys? I'm like, can I just bring one more guy with me? He's like, yeah, bring him. We're going to do briefing. We go out on that first mission at midnight, and we cross the street into the cop. I've got my nods on, I've got my helmet, I'm going out on a mission. Nobody else has done anything yet in Pennsylvania, and this is day 2 plus 6 hours. And we're meeting up with Third ID. They're gonna execute an ambush. It's gonna be sniper initiated. Everybody's checking themselves. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. I put my odds down, I do my check. I strap on my helmet, which I think is tight enough for me. And we're up against a truck, they count us. They're like, we're going out that gate, and it's metal, and it slides. It slides to the right to open it, and there's a guy there. He's holding on to it. And it's rusty looking, it's real ugly, and now I'm looking at this through a green lens. And I'm getting images of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, it reminds me when he comes out behind that door. Like, that's really odd. And we're standing by this garden, and he opens it up, and we start going through, and we're getting interval. And I look over my shoulder, and as soon as that last man went through that gate, he shuts it. And my mind's just exploding with imagery, like, oh my God, this is it. I'm in bad company. The Badlands is what they would end up calling it. I'm in the Badlands, and we're going. And I'm almost like too close to the guy in front of me that the Third ID soldier looks at me and goes, can you get off of me? I'm like, sorry, man. I'm like, be cool. We're whipping and snaking through the city, and we come into this building, and we set up in an L shape inside the building. And I meet Aaron Arnold from Shadow Team. And me and him are partnered together. My sniper partner is Specialist York, tall, college educated, studying biology, life. And now he's about to take life. And I'm watching the city. He goes, hey man, get some rest. We build our sniper position. We open up all the windows. Everybody's opening up all the windows. We're moving away from the window, put some depth between us. We're watching the area. We're looking for trends and patterns. And we set up our position on a desk, looking out into the window. And I tell him, I can't sleep. Just let me stay up. I'm used to this because from the police department. I'm 40 years old. This is a 20-year-something guy. And he's like, yeah, man, we're good. I'm like, all right. And we start picking up trends and patterns. I pick it up. And I remember there was a kid, and he's in the alley, and he's making a phone call. And they told us, rules of engagement. You see a guy on the phone, kill him. I'm not gonna kill a kid because he's on a phone. And then I see him on the rooftop, again on the phone. And then I see cars slowing down. And then I see a van come onto the roadway. And it's Race and X-Ray is the location in Ramadi. We've given the streets their own names. And so this one is Race and X-Ray. And I'm pretty sure that's what that corner was. And all of a sudden I hear a single shot ring out, and there's a man in a white man dress, and he drops. And he's obviously dead. And it erupts into us initiating the ambush. And rather than watching the street empty, more people are coming to the fight. At the end of that fight, I killed 3 and 2 probables. And I'm pouring bullets into a certain individual. He came down and he used his sons as a human shield, and he's crouched down behind them. I'm like, what is he doing? Why is this guy doing this? But my mind is not processing that it's 3 little boys, and there's a grown man pushing them in front of him. And I'm like, I can kill him. I can do a headshot from here. So I set up, I pull the trigger, he goes down, and the 3 boys disappear out of my field of view. And he's still trying to reach out to them. His hand's out like this, and I could see another hand trying to grab him. So I pour more rounds into him. I hit him each time. But I don't stop. And Aaron Arnold walks up to me, puts his hand on my shoulder, goes, I think he's had enough. And by the time we're done, there's bodies out there that are laying down, dead. So I push back, and the street explodes. They had set in an IED, and they detonated it. And the fight continues. And this one soldier, he's up against the wall, and he's like this. And he's not handling it well. And there's smoke, and there's dust. You can't breathe. You can't even see the windows. And I walk up to him, and my instinct is to yell at him, get into the fight. And I look at him like, hey, man, you've got to move to the window, find the target, and kill them. And then I just kept on moving. And I see him, and he moves towards the window, and he does his business. It's not like the movies. And it's over. So when that sniper, that other shadow team, took that shot, I looked over the wall. I saw that man on his right side, away from me, lying there on the ground, not moving. I'm like, that's the sniper kill. Okay, got it. And there was a blue van that would later try to actually cut. They had their own Kazbek system going as well. So it looked like they had also the ambush when it kicked off was killing people inside that van. And there was a small 4-door gold-colored sedan across the street from the body, and the trunk was open. That gentleman with the 3 boys in front of him that he was using as a human shield was trying to access that trunk. That's why I had to kill him. So when I killed him, another vehicle came in, and they were trying to get to that trunk, and the lieutenant came running in, and he said, hey, anybody gets near that vehicle, kill them. Sure enough, people are going for a truck, and I'm just hitting them. I ended up shooting. I remember this one guy showed up, and he had moved towards the trunk of the vehicle, and he was trying to grab things. And when he exposed himself, I took my shot and I hit him. And he dropped whatever he had in his hands, and he's stumbling away from the vehicle now. And it's obviously, he's in shock. We're only less than 100 meters from the scene. I'm seeing it clear as day. And he's standing there and he's looking at the blood, and his arm is kind of limp. And he's like, he's trying to process what's going on. And I shoot him again. And it slams him against the wall, and he falls against this waist-high wall that had a black wrought iron fence on it, and behind that was a amusement park. And he falls, and you can see the blood streak down, and he's in a sitting position. So I got that guy dead. I've got the guy laying on the ground dead, and there's a passenger on in that vehicle that he showed that showed up with whatever they're trying to get out of the trunk. So I understand ballistics. I know that my round is probably not getting past maybe 18 inches in front of that window. So I decide I'm going to throw more shots as close as I possible in a very tight group into that passenger. And you could see it hit him because he stumbles out of the vehicle on the passenger side. He's up on the sidewalk and he sits down on this, against this post. And I shoot him again. And he just slumps forward. Like he's in a sitting position, his head's down like this. So now I've got 3 bodies. There's a 4th body there. And I shot 2 more people. And the last person to shoot was the man with the, who had used those boys as a human shield. So the fight's over. We're going across the street. They're telling us we're going to move across the street in broad daylight rather than stay in our position where we have announced ourselves to this angry city. And I'm like, I'm going to get killed. Because once again, because of my reading, I noticed that all the dead guys that had been killed previously to me being there were shot crossing the street in broad daylight by a single position manned by a machine gunner. And here we are, broad daylight crossing the street. And it's my turn to cross the street, and I run. I run as hard as I can. And as I'm running, my helmet that's loose is coming down, and it cuts me across the bridge of my big nose. And now I got blood coming down. And I get in, and this other soldier's like, in here. And we move into the house, and we're clearing. CQB is full in effect. Nobody goes to the 2nd floor. I'm like, wow, these guys know what they're doing. You do not move to that 2nd floor until that 1st floor is clear. So they stack on the bottom, nothing's preventing our way. 3-man team goes up the staircase. They're like, clear. Everybody's clear. I'm in the bathroom. I see this, I hear somebody yell, there's somebody running. He's dressed in black. And I could see this figure appear in my field of view, matching the description. I'm about to engage. It looks like a 12-year-old boy. I look at his hands, nothing. I'm like, don't shoot. He's not carrying anything. Don't shoot. He's clear. Don't shoot. And he just runs. We stayed there long enough. Bradleys are collecting the bodies. We start running in broad daylight through this angry streets. And I'm thinking we're going to get shot up. I'm picturing Mogadishu again. From what I saw on the screen in the book I read. I'm like, it's going to happen. And I'm tired. It's 129 degrees. I'm in full battle rattle. I got dry blood on my face. I'm thirsty. I'm amped up. My senses are overwhelmed. And I'm slowing down. I'm carrying an M203. I feel tired. And Aaron's right behind me. He's like, keep going moving, Sergeant. You got this. Keep moving. And we make it. And we're inside Camp Corregidor. And we start getting briefed. They're like, Martinez shot 5 people, 3 confirmed dead, 2 probable. Didn't even know anyone was counting. And I go into Shadow 6 area, and they said, hey, there's going to be a cub. Shadow team is to, the team that deployed on that ambush is to go to that meeting. So we walk in, we're sitting up against the wall, and in walks in this football player type guy, bald head, sweat coming off his bald head, deeply tanned. He's got a cigar in his mouth, and it turns out to be this gentleman called Colonel Rogan. He's like, gentlemen, I'm gonna make this clear. I'm gonna make this clear to everyone. If you need anything out there, you call it, and we will deliver. Do I make myself clear? By God, we have the enemy on the run. I'm like, wow, I've never seen this. And he's like, all right, tell me what happened. So Sergeant H is kind of giving his briefing, and I'm seeing him struggle a little bit. And what the colonel wants is what were the indicators that led us engaging so that we can learn from these indicators. I'm police. I know how to do this. I know how to use the language that's going to justify what we did. So I stand up, I introduce myself. I just said, Sergeant Martinez, da-da. Like I said, I introduce myself and I start delivering like a 2-minute thing, if that long. I sit back down and he goes, who are you with? I said, I'm a sniper with the 28th IBCT. I was on that mission. He goes, okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I sit back down and S2 comes out and they said, hey, we hit a high value target. And it's the picture of the guy. And I'll never forget it because what made him stand out is he had a multicolored shirt out and it was short sleeve. And he had these dark tan looking polyester type pants on. And what was weird was most Arabs over there don't wear multicolored shirts. So this was a very intelligent man who's been exposed to Western society. Turns out he's a cell leader. He's an ID and a kidnapper, and he's in charge of those type of operations. And we killed him, and it's the guy that I shot. But I don't know that he's like, hey, look, we took his picture that we have, we overlaid them, and he overlays them. And I'm not sure what he's leading to. And as he overlays them, they come together perfectly. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. You know, I'm a cop. I'm in trouble. He goes, gentlemen, we just killed a cell team leader, high value target. Well done. But he's not talking to me directly. He's talking to the entire room. Well done. And I walk away. And I write a letter to my police department. It's about 3 pages long. And I sign off on it. If today's events are indicative of what the year lies ahead for me, I'm going to die out here. That's how violent it was for me in that moment. Unbeknownst to me, word starts to spread around with Animal Company. And in walks this gentleman, Joey B. And I hear him talking, how he wants to do this and he was misled. And he's not talking to me directly, but he's talking about the team that just got disbanded by the 28th IBCT leadership, Animal Company. And, you know, he wants to get a shot at this and everything. I'm listening to it, but I'm not acknowledging him. He's talking to the rest of the people inside this dorm area. Finally, I'm like, you know what? I had it. I get up. I go, Joey, let's talk outside in the hallway. And I'm paraphrasing. I said, look, you want to be on this team that I'm going to put together? Because I've been given the authority to put a new team together. I want to use you, York, and Taylor, all E4s. No NCOs, because your NCOs bailed out on you. They bailed out on you, and they bailed out on the mission. One literally told me, I just want to be in the tower. I want to go back home to my girlfriend. Another one said, I'm out of my league. And the third one didn't even say anything, just left. Coward. And I said, so the only thing I ask of you is your loyalty. Do not undermine me or I'll get rid of you. Quote unquote, I'll fucking kill you. He's like, cool, you got my loyalty. I go, Taylor wants to come on the team. He wants to return back to the team, another E4. I'm like, sure. I go back to Gilliland, and by this time, in a very short time, he's like, just call me Jim. And I couldn't. I was like, hey, Staff Sergeant, here's the deal. He goes, can you bring more guys like you? I'm like, I have 3 E4s. He goes, great. You're going to take charge of that team. You're Shadow 4 from now on. And what would begin through that year was the most violent period of my life. I would be blown up twice. In a room, in a vehicle, I'd be knocked down by a bullet, and I would fight off the enemy that we were throwing hand grenades. So many guys were wounded at the end of that year. We had a 100% casualty rate among the NCOs. We had a 25% KIA in the section alone. I'm just talking about the sniper section. We would be credited for over 400 confirmed kills. It was a sniper's paradise. The team got put together. I started training them. I started back right into training, physical fitness, giving them the little speech, be loyal to me. This is my job. I'm here to do a job. If you can't handle what's going to happen in front of you, now is the time to do it. Otherwise, we're going to get into it. So the teams are going out now into Ramadi, and they're ramped up. The other shadow teams got kills. We got kills. And we're hunting now. But they take my team and they break it up among 3 teams. Shadow 1, 2, and 3. I'm Shadow 4. And during that time and space, they're getting into it. They're seeing combat. They're seeing sniper kills. At the same time, the enemy hits one of our positions called OP Hotel. It's literally a hotel bombed out, and it's occupied by an Iraqi platoon and an American platoon from 3rd ID. A dump truck comes down the road against traffic, crosses over the median, and slams head into the building and detonates, knocks everybody out. We're ramped up, and we go. And I get there, and it smells literally like, again, blood, and it smells like feces. And everybody's shaken up. People are coming out in stretchers. No American was killed. 2 are expected to die. Platoon below, the Iraqis, they have some that were killed. Most, I think, 100% casualties. Devastating. We stay out there. We support them. We're defending the position for continued attacks. And while I'm out there, I got my sniper position set up. I got my bolt gun ready. I got my book out. I see this man dressed in black, short sleeve shirt. Again, he comes out, he looks around, he's on the phone. I know ROE, we can kill him, but I don't. Later on, intelligence obtains a video of the attack made from the enemy's perspective, and it shows them prepping for the kill. So what they do is they drive up. The gentleman that I saw, matching the description that I saw with my own eyes, is also in the video. He's on the passenger side. No, he's on the driver's side. He gets out, he talks to the passenger slides into the driver's side, and they're talking. And then the vehicle drives up, makes the left turn, and it's headed towards OP Hotel. And fire erupts across the street so that Americans can't engage the truck. Everybody moves away from the windows. That movement saved a lot of lives. And so when the vehicle detonates, it rolls up and hits the Jersey barrier, and it does this. And so when the detonation ignited, the blast went up the path of least resistance. It went up the body of the truck and out. But the explosion and the concussion and the flames seared the front of the building, and it knocked enough people out inside that building. They failed to exploit that attack. They would have wiped out 2 whole platoons easily. Everybody was on their back and knocked out. The lieutenant later said, I saw figures coming through the doorway. I thought, this is it. And he had taken out his knife. He thought he was going to go hand to hand. And it was the U.S. Marines coming in, security area, until we could spin up. It was a fully integrated fight out there between both branches. Colonel comes back, he's like, gloves are off, gents. Gloves are off. Hunt that enemy. And so we go. We're pushing out mission after mission. It's been quiet. They're not doing anything. By November, I decide I'm going to sit down with one of the other team leaders because Gillian goes away on leave to the United States, and he puts another NCO in charge. And I realize during my assessment that we're not hitting this particular part of the city, a neighborhood called Mulab. And so I say, hey, I think we should go in there. And these two other team leaders say, no, we're not going in there. It's suicide. I'm like, look, I've been studying this. And it's been almost confirmed. That's where the planners are. That's where all the materials are being gathered. And they're moving it across the MSR. They're engaging us, and they're trying to kill the Marines to the north. And we're not even touching it. And we get into this big argument that they literally tell me, get out, get out. Don't talk to us, shut up and leave right now. I'm thinking we're gonna get in a fist fight, but nobody's making more aggressive moves, so I'm thinking, be cool, do not get kicked off this team. You've been here for a few months, just be cool. So I go meet with another member and we generate this plan. At this point, I've been reading a lot of books. I've been making phone calls. I made connections to get equipment sent to us from, at the time, I think it was called the American Snipers Association. They're sending us equipment. They're sending us holsters. They're sending us rifle parts. They're sending us equipment to enhance our capabilities. It's an amazing group. And at the same time, Colonel Roggen goes, look, if you want to bring more weapons into your section at your own cost, go ahead and do it. Meaning, if you want to improve your trigger, you want new optics, bring it. So I had my police sniper weapon mailed to me in parts. And I started to fuse the ideas of what I learned in the Marine Corps and my days on the SWAT team and my experience in Ramadi, and I made what is now today called a sniper heavy team. It's been made doctrine. And I also made each member of my team carry his own bolt gun. So no one's sharing bolt guns. So we're running heavy equipment, we're running heavy in personnel. It's our first mission. And I took a tactic that I read in a book called The Ultimate Sniper, written by a SOG MACV veteran. And I call it the wolf pack. And basically you set up teams along the street and you start reporting in suspicious activity. And if you determine PID, go ahead and hit it. Because as snipers, we're not waiting for the attack. We're going to take the totality of circumstances, history of the street, the activity that we see in front of us. We're going to collectively make a decision and say, that's a bad guy, kill him. We were proactive. So given these left and right boundaries, I'm like, this is how we're going to kill him. And we go to this house. We walk into the house, we sequester the family. At this point, we've already shot people from this particular house. Ramadan has happened, it's over, and everybody says they're used to roaming the streets now at free will. So they're not expecting us. Like, perfect. And my job, not that it was specified, was to stay up all night, let the team sleep, and wait till daylight. So I would stay up at night. Sun comes up, I go to York. Hey man, take over this position, no activity, but I'm expecting activity by 07, and it's gonna be with the purpose to kill. And he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, they're gonna try to do something. So it's gonna happen about 7 o'clock, so have your wits about you, all right? Keep your head on the swivel. I'm gonna be downstairs sleeping. We had a 3-man team made up of third ID, Sergeant Newhouse, another guy named, I could be wrong, McKay, and there was a third person. Hope he forgives me for not remembering his name. And I lay down. And I'm thinking I'm sleeping good, and I hear, I wake up, I look at my watch, it's only less than 60 minutes I've been sleeping. I go upstairs and like, what do you got? And he's like, biker came up the road, he went over by the dirt mound, he started digging, he put an object in there, got back on the bike, I took my shot, and he's laying out there in the street. I'm like, okay. I take out my camera, I take a photo, I put it away, and at that point, up until then, the mission changes once we make a kill. It's to extract. And I always want to extract under nighttime conditions. We own the night, they don't. We have every capability, they don't. I'm not moving daytime, we don't have to. Also, I want to see this play out. So we're sitting there, and I see this vehicle come moving up the road. So it's coming from north to south. We're on the southern end. It comes moving up. It stops right by the figure that got shot. And I'm watching it. And the guy is still alive on the street. And I could only imagine the conversation was, where did they shoot from? And he points to the north, which is the city of Mulab, or the neighborhood of Mulab. And I'm like, pick a target, kill them all. And everybody moves towards the windows, and a big fight begins. The roof, well, there is no roof. It's open. And the vehicle starts coming down the street, and I hear behind me, can we throw hand grenades? That vehicle's moving to him. I'm like, throw them, throw them. And I unhook a hand grenade, I cook it, I throw it, goes over the roof, and I put a high arc on it, and it detonates inside the courtyard. My two soldiers, they threw their hand grenades, and it lands adjacent to the vehicle, and it causes it to crash into our gate. But the gate holds. So I move downstairs, and I see Sergeant Newhouse. I walk up to him like, hey, man, we're in heavy engagement. We got a vehicle with 2 bad guys out there. I need you to kill them. He goes, we can handle that. I go, I'll protect you from top. You good? He's like, we got it. And he goes, I think they hit us with an RPG, something detonated. I'm like, don't worry about that. So I go upstairs, and I see them move across the courtyard. And they walk up to this opening in the gate. They kill the 2 guys. They finish them off with a hand grenade. And then I see this one guy kind of crawling. I could just make his shadow out. And I hear him whining, like he's really in a lot of pain, but he's not yelling, he's not screaming, he's just whimpering, literally in pain. So I throw a hand grenade. And that's the last I've heard of him. Now, we're getting a lot of small arms fire coming from the north. QRF is refusing to come get us because they feel the whole street is completely covered in IEDs. Like, they say, you come to us. So we line up, we go out into the courtyard. There's another shadow team out there, and they're like, go back inside the house. They are positioning themselves to kill you. Go back inside the house. So I acknowledge, we go back inside, I'm like, take up defensive positions. Sniper mission's over, it's an infantry mission. Come get us. Come when you want to fight, and we get into it. I remember this guy kept popping his head over the wall down the street from me, and York gets up behind me. I said, York, he's gonna pop up one more time. I'm on him. When you see him and I see him, just take the shot. Sure enough, guy comes up, I take the shot, his head snaps, and then he just disappears. Fighting stops. And we move out, and I'm like, we're gonna go. I could see the Bradleys down there, and they're not coming. We have to go to them. And it's about 175-meter run in the middle of this melee. So we get up on the street. I know that I have to be the #1 man to show my team I'm willing to accept the dangers just like they are. And I'm gonna get killed, but I'm gonna do this. So I go out, and the street is getting peppered, and you can just see the pillars of dirt going straight up in the air, indicating that's where the rounds are hitting. And we're walking right into, well, we're at a fast trot. And I see this insurgent laying on the ground, male, wearing a leather jacket, dark pants. And as I'm #1 on the stack, rolling through the street, and he looks at me and he goes, Mister, and he's like reaching into his vest, and I went, boom, 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 dropped 3 in his chest. And then the machine gunner, I see him on the rooftop, and he's the one that's littering the street with rounds. I get to one knee, and it looks, all I can see is a silhouette from the shoulders up. Just like if I was on the range, all you see is a head, shoulders. I take a knee, I crouch in real tight, boom, I hit him. And I'm thinking my team's with me. And I hear in the distance, and I see this ugly looking sergeant. His face is red. His eyes are piercing blue. And my senses are heightened. I've never experienced anything like this. I'm not hearing the rounds. I'm just seeing things. And when he's talking to me, it's slow motion. I could see the spit between his lips. And he's red. And he looks ugly as hell. He's an ugly man. I'm sorry, man. And he's like, Martinez, you motherfucker, get your ass on the vehicle. And I look over my shoulder, there's nobody out there in the street with me. And I go running. And he leans out and he grabs me to get me in there faster. That thing comes up and we move in. We move into combat outpost. And they drop the rear. And I'm trying to process just what happened. And I step out with my team, and there's Able Company. And they're like almost on both sides of the vehicle. They're high-fiving each other. They're congratulating each other. The lieutenant walks up to me, and we used to call him respectfully and lovingly. There was this cartoon character. He's like, I just want to get big. I just want to get big. I don't know his name, but he was given that name. Hell of a commander. And PL, you know how it is in Marines. PLs are platoon leaders, for us are commanders. And he walks up to me and goes, I knew it was you. I knew it. Good job. And at the same time, Newhouse looks at me and goes, I'll go to hell with this guy. What a hell of a day. Outstanding. You know, it just praise after praise after praise. I'm overwhelmed. I looked at my team like, keep going, just keep going. And I'm trembling. Like my hands are shaking so bad. So we get back. And by this time, our reputation is sealed. We've had great successes. We're stacking bodies, literally. And this is it. A National Guard team generates the mission, plans it, coordinates, and executes with great success. Shadow 4, for the first time, is no longer broken up between Shadow 1, 2, and 3. It is now Shadow 4 operating on its own. And I go on this relentless pursuit of excellence. Like any mission coming down the road, I'm getting it. So we had this thing up on the wall, and it would say Shadow 1 is doing this. Shadow 2 is pending. Shadow 3, resting. Shadow 4, it literally says, who the fuck knows where they're at? And Sergeant H's team was an amazing team, highly respected in the section. And I walk up to him, and I know that he's doing other missions than what we're doing, and they're very successful at it. So and there's no competition going on. But you know, there's a hierarchy in performance, or the performance determines the hierarchy. And Sergeant H is leading that charge. And I'm thinking, I can do this. So I start analyzing, and I start reading. I would go into S2 and start reading the assessments. And I'm trying to determine what the enemy is doing. And I realize there's a lot of activity happening in or around OP Hotel. So I go to Sergeant H, he's laying on his rack, he's reading the book. He's not acknowledging me. He's just reading. And then he finally closes his book and goes, you need something? I'm like, yeah, I got a couple questions for you. He goes, go ahead. I said, how do you do what you do? How do you get on the missions that you get? I want to do some of them. I also have some ideas. He goes, well, why don't you tell me your ideas? I said, I think we should have a shadow team operating from a hotel, but not make it permanent. We just rotate. And that way we can start to understand and to maybe develop and perhaps counter any enemy activity that we're seeing out there. And I think it's a great idea. And he says, well, look, you know how I get my missions? I just do them. Sergeant G is not going to question it. He's going to review it. He's going to make suggestions, but he's not going to stop you. You basically have laissez-faire, hands-off approach here. And it was my first time with the expression, we've got a big boys rules going on. I'm like, okay, that's it? He's like, yep. And he goes, now this idea about yours, and he's now laying back on his guy, he goes, we don't entertain stupidity. I'm like, okay. I'm 40 years old. This guy is probably 12 to 15 years younger than me, but he's highly respected. Age didn't mean indifference. If he said it was stupid, it was stupid. But again, I come from an analytical background. So I'm either going to deny or confirm my analysis. So I go back to my team, hey, we're going to OP Hotel, and we're going to watch things happen. I go over to Able Company, who has responsibility for OP Hotel. I coordinate, and they're like, yeah, come. We love it. More guns. Like, okay. I go, hey, this is how we work. We don't work at night. We work during the day. We don't have any real night capability. We'll stay up at night the first few times to see what the activity is, but I think most of the activity is happening during the day, the prep time, to engage you as the hours extend later into the day. That's my analysis. They're looking at me like, yeah, whatever, dude. I'm like, okay. And they give me the leeway. They put me up on this thing, and we get kills. We killed, Joey B gets a kill. I got a kill. I think I got 2 kills. And we come back, and they're like, holy cow. Jim Gilliland goes, hey, man, we're going to rotate a team out of there. I'm like, cool. I don't say anything. And we start rotation out of there, and we're killing them. We're stacking again, all from OP Hotel. And they actually create this area, and we call it the crow's nest, and all the snipers, when they're rotating their teams out, go to this crow's nest, and it gives us a 360 view. And then that OP Hotel becomes the release point, because it would eventually, 3rd ID would get ripped out by the 101st. And at this point, I'm thinking, what kind of relationship do I have with 3rd ID? Is it good? Because this is the 101. And it's not just the 101. It's the first of the 506. The Band of Brothers. And I'm thinking to myself, they're not going to want a National Guard team. This is the 506. They have a lockdown on this place. They're not going to want me. Unbeknownst to me, those conversations are happening. And Gilliland tells me, hey, man, I talked to them. I have completely endorsed you 100%. I think you know what you're doing out there. You have a lot of experience. I told them they'd be foolish not to capitalize on your experience, your judgment, and capabilities. And they've agreed. You are now being transferred to the 101st, 1st of the 506 Joker. I'm like, cool, I'll go meet them right now. I just want to get this stuff out of the way and continue killing. So I go in there, it's nighttime, and all I see is a sea of smiles, real friendly. And at this point, I've experienced being bombed on the base. I've seen our buildings explode. I'm seeing injuries. We had some of our Halliburton personnel killed. I had an interpreter killed. I'm seeing all this violence and mayhem going on. And it's disheartening, because as much as we're killing them out there, they're killing us. I remember there's one interpreter. He was an Iraqi, and he had come to the United States, and his name was Sam, and he lived right across from me. And we would talk. He would tell me about Georgia. And so we had a smoking area outside the building, which I always thought was, why would you do that? But hey, man, I didn't smoke. None of my team were allowed to smoke or use tobacco. So we would always be inside. And sure enough, they hit it. There's bodies everywhere. Sam is one of the guys out there, and I go out there. And I drag him in, and he's just full of little holes. It didn't really look like anything terrible. And he's like, Harry, go get my glasses. Please go get my glasses, I can't see. And I'm like, okay, so I'm checking his body for any major devastation. And then part of me doesn't want to go out there because they already hit it once. They might hit it again. But I go out there because he's pleading with me. I find his glasses, they're twisted. I bend them back into something remotely to its original position. I put it on his face. I remember he had a few holes in his head, real small. Not a lot of blood, just blood from everybody else, and it's pulling up. Gilliland is trying to maintain order in this open area inside the building. And I put him on the cot, we lift him up on our shoulder, we pull him in the back of the vehicle, it drives away. And the next morning, I'm walking, I go into Full Metal Jacket, and they're clearing out his room. I'm like, Sam going home? And I asked the soldiers inside this little hole in the wall where they had put a plywood as a door. And they're like, Sam died. So I'm like, okay, thanks. I go into Full Metal Jacket, and these are the things that are happening, and it's common. There was another interpreter got blown up in half, literally in half. They were taking the same risk we were. It's Christmas time. And the third ID is ripping out, 101's coming in, and I'm standing in this middle of smiles, this sea of smiles. Everyone's shaking my hand. I'm all about business now. And I'm like, hey, gentlemen, my name is Sergeant Martinez, Shadow 4 team leader. I've been reassigned, so this is what I want to happen. I'm like, I need 4 of you. We'll go out with my 4. We're gonna do a recon. We got a mission going within the next 24 hours. I'll give you the briefing on the mission. Here's the map, I roll it out. This is where we are. This is where we're going. Here's the overlay. This is how we're gonna get there. These are known points. I'm gonna be back in 45 minutes. Have your team ready to go. And the section leader comes through the group. Ken Cook, bald-headed, beautiful blue eyes, smiling, but he has his time in. He would end up doing over 60 months in combat. And he would nearly get killed out there in Ramadi with me. He goes, hey, slow it down, man. Nobody's gonna do any recon tonight. I'll take this information, I'll bring it to the lieutenant, and we'll prove the mission, but nothing's happening tonight. And I'm looking at them like, every day that we miss, we're not out there killing them, they're setting up to kill one of ours. Just, you think about that, so don't delay. He goes, got it, man, appreciate it. We'll get back with you tomorrow. I'm like, all right. And I leave. And it was, our PO was a former Green Beret and trying to be an officer, and so he has to do conventional time before he can come back to his SF team as an officer. He looks like Audie Murphy on steroids. Literally, handsome guy, short, very confident. And they come back, and he says, look, this is what I want. We're gonna set up our own TOC. It's called SOC, Scout Sniper Operating Center. We have a radio, we have maps, we're gonna have op orders. Everything's gonna be by the book, by the numbers. In addition to that, you're gonna be carrying money belts lined with gold. Any damage that you incur out there on the population, you fill out this chit, you hand them the gold, You come back, you write a statement, you sign it so that we can keep accountability how much money is being pushed out. Never seen anything like it. Very organized. I'm jumping ahead, but I want to say that even though it seemed very bureaucratic, very systematic, it enabled us to operate now at a higher level. What he did and the changes that he incorporated and forced us to follow saved a lot of lives, to his credit. Now, that doesn't mean we had a beautiful relationship, because we really didn't. I remember on one mission, he's like, we're going to do an air assault. And he's got all the teams gathered. It's a big mission. He's like, gentlemen, first wave in is going to be Shadow 4. And he gets done with the brief, and everybody's standing up, and he's telling, you know, here's already given us the op order. I go, that man either loves me or he's trying to get me killed. But that's the kind of relationship we had. And so getting back, we do the recon. We're out there. We're moving around. I'm pointing out landmarks, the hospital. I'm pointing out prior engagement areas that are really important. I'm pointing out cardinal directions and trying to get them to associate literally the terrain with the cardinal directions, not get wrapped around a map, not get wrapped around a compass. So we go back, and they're about to go do the mission. And they're like, all right, gentlemen, punch in your waypoints. Everybody breaks out a pocket GPS, boom. They're putting in grids. Everything's been converted to MGPS, and I was amazed. And we're out there, and they're racking kills. And so the captain comes to me, he's like, Martinez, if you could do something here, what would you do that we're not doing? I'm like, we need to go into Malab. That's where the planners are. That's where we haven't hit them, and they're gonna least expect it. We're gonna be able to see them actually plan. No one has done it. Third ID did not go into that area. And if we can kill them there, it will disrupt operations across the city. This is a city of 400,000 people. And they're Sunni, pro-Iraq. Well, pro-Iraq meaning pro-Saddam. He's like, okay, that's happening. So things are mounting. And I decide I need a break. And I got long hair. I got a little beard going. I'm wearing a baseball hat with the Eagle Globe and anchor. I got a Colombia fleece on instead of the Army stuff. And I'm wearing DCU bottoms, which are no longer part of any uniform in the Army. I'm doing my own thing. We were short of going rogue in terms of who we were, not going outside making our own rules. We were still very much in compliance. I was so cognizant of rules and conduct out there because I believed in something that I learned reading a book by Dave Grossman. You treat the enemy accordingly. But if you're in a fight, you destroy that threat, meaning you kill them. But if they surrender, then you capture them, you treat them accordingly, and word will come out that we're treating them well. And I read a Time magazine how a unit did that, and it resulted in great intel. And it converted the insurgent to think, I've been told something totally different about you guys. So that seemed like a smart approach to me. And in that time, I was afraid because of the way we operated that something stupid could happen between one of the soldiers and a female. And my greatest fear was sexual misconduct. So I told my team straight out, if one of you touch any girl inappropriately, or if one of you gets stupid enough and you make me believe that you raped her, or I hear you raped her, I will kill you on the spot. There will be no explanation. You'll die. I will kill you myself on the spot. Word got around, like, don't mess up. By this time, they're calling me killer every day. Hey, killer. Hey, killer. People want to take my photographs. I got API newsmen want to talk to me. I've got soldiers that calling me a sociopath, my own soldiers that I'm trying to protect out there. I've got people that won't talk to me. I got people questioning my tactics, and Captain Carney, my PA, state trooper, company commander, sits me down. And he says, there are a lot of people that don't agree with what you're doing. But I have to tell them, you're not him, and you're not seeing it through his eyes. He's not there to be hit. He's there to be proactive. And it's very hard to argue when his results are quite successful. It's actually making impact on negotiations, not just his team, the entire sniper section. So I don't want to hear it. He goes, that's what I am telling them on your behalf. So please, please keep doing what you're doing. No one's trying to stop you, but remember who you are and what you represent. So he goes, so I'm going to send you to Camp Ramadi, and I need you to do some soul searching. And by this time, we had like a Mogadishu incident already happen, April 9th. And I'm not sure if this instigated the plans that were being laid out, but there was a series of events. So by this time, it's March. And everybody on my team has gone home, and I think it's my turn. I'm like, okay. And I had a conversation with the sniper section leader. He asked me about my opinion on this particular team leader. And then I brought up some concerns, and the decision was made to move him back to a line company. And so I went home. And the section leader had told me, hey, he's been removed, he's going to a line company. He didn't do anything wrong, but there was concerns. So I'm home. I just landed in New Jersey. I decided to go visit my police department. And because they've been supporting me all around, and my family, and I've been writing them letters, I just felt I owed them a visit. So I get up in that morning, I'm happy, I'm home, it's raining, it's kind of cold, typical Jersey weather. I open up my email, and boom, urgent. And it's from my team in Ramadi. And it's from York, and he's like, Joey B's been shot. Silva's dead. They got hit hard. And I'm reeling. Joey B is he's my war horse. And I'm like, wow, man, I'm here. And my team just suffered a tremendous loss. And I'm here. But I know there's nothing I can do. So I'm like, put it away. So I get dressed, and I go to meet my police department. And I'm in the hallway, and I'm saying hello, and I'm trying to be lighthearted. And in that, I end up insulting one of my officers. He took it a little hard. I was like, what kind of shirt are you wearing, man? It's pretty loud. He's a detective dressed in plain clothes. Basically telling him, you look like an idiot in that shirt. But I'm trying to be lighthearted. Yeah, good seeing you, Harry. And he leaves. I'm like, sorry. I'm outside, and I'm talking to another detective, and we were supposed to be working together. If I had not gone to fight overseas, we would have been working together on a sexual crimes unit. And so we were talking about that, and I was making sure she's okay, because it's pretty horrific what they deal with. There's a burnout rate of 4 to 5 years for officers in those types of units. And I love her. She's an amazing officer. And I just, I think the world of her. So anyways, I tell her, hey, look, I got some really bad news. I think I'm just gonna go home. I don't even finish. And I leave. And I just remember leave being a blur. Now it's my time to go back to Ramadi. And my brother shows up. My son at this point, he's 19, 20 years old. And he and my brother start drinking beers. They're stacking up beers. My brother passes out on the couch. I'm still on my 3rd beer, and I throw up in the toilet. I can't handle the alcohol, and I feel sick. And As I'm upstairs, the sun's come up. My wife contacts me, you have 3 police officers in our living room. I'm like, okay. I walk downstairs, and it's my chief, the captain, and the lieutenant. Like, hey, gentlemen, what's going on? They're like, Harry, we're here to say goodbye to you. Just wanted to say goodbye. And he gives me a big hug. These men are all over 6 feet. Well, 2 of them are, and one is a little taller than me. And he gives me a big hug, and I remember holding on to him so tight, like a child holding on to, like a parent figure, like, saved me. And they look over and they see my brother passed out. They see all the beer. I go, believe it or not, they did all the drinking, I didn't. And they're like, yeah, and everything's real lighthearted, and they leave. And I throw up again. And I just keep throwing up. And I tell my wife, I got to go to the hospital. I need something to stop me from throwing up. I just feel really sick. So they take me to the hospital. The hospital knows me because it's in my area of work. And the doctor walks in. He's like, hey, Harry, I can give you a medication to stop you from throwing up. I know where you're going. We can delay you going by up to 72 hours if you want. And I'm laying there and I'm watching Kathy Griffin do a stand-up routine. And I'm laughing. And it feels so good. And he gives me this decision. I look at my wife and you can see her like, please don't do this. Please don't go. And I'm like, just give me the medication. I don't want anything. I need to get back. And I go, he gives me the medication, I pack up my stuff, and I move to the airport. Within 22 hours of landing, I'm on a helicopter, and I kill 2 more people. Joey B got shot 6 times. All impacted his gear, and 1 round hit him in the arm. Silva died. And there was other people that were wounded in the 101, part of Gunslinger Company. So we're in the planning room, and I was like, you know what? And I'm just made an offhand remark, and Captain Senti, big man. Whew, the man's the size of a wall. Big guy, man. All about the fight. And I say, look, they don't like us, and we're here to kill them. So they're making the decision real easy for them. But they want to hide. Why don't we draw them out by calling them heathens? Everything that can insult a Muslim. Who cares? Let's call their mother jackals. Let's just insult them. Let's put it on a tape, give it to PSYOPs, and let them blur it out into the street. And I'm thinking, it's not going to happen. But it's just me kind of venting. And guess what? They do it. And for the first time, we roll our tanks out into the city. And one of them gets disabled from an IED. And it becomes the fight from hell. We've got a tank down in Mulab, and it's on fire. And because it has equipment on there, and we don't want them near that equipment, everybody converges on the tank to protect it so that we can link up with it, so maintenance can link up with it and draw it out of there. And every team is rolling out there. On top of that, QRF rolls out. We lose 3 vehicles and 8 guys. That was April 9th, 2006. There was an NCO. His name was Sergeant First Class Rogers. First time he sees me, we're doing laundry. You know, he was a platoon sergeant. And we're doing the laundry, and he's looking at me, and again, I'm in my garb. Baseball hat, got my little facial beard going, got my clothes. I don't look anything like a soldier. But I'm in the 101 barracks doing laundry. He goes, who are you? Well, at this point, I'm now a staff sergeant. I got promoted. 2 Marine captains have pinned me. But I also have not mentioned that I actually got detached and put on a Marine Corps task force called Dark Eagle. It was made up of Air Force TAC-Ps, Marine Corps 1st Anglico, and Army Scout Snipers. and I'm leading the Army section. And we got into a huge fight. So, but here I am with Sergeant Rogers. And Sergeant Rogers, he's disgusted with me, you can tell. And he finds out I'm National Guard. But I don't tell him what I do. He's like, yeah, this is what I'm just Sergeant Martinez. Lo and behold, unfortunately gets killed in that response on April 9th. We go to his funeral, and I make my team go, because we lost so many guys that day. And what they do is, let's say it's me. They'll go, Sergeant Martinez, and they're doing roll call. And the soldier that has died, killed in action, obviously he's not going to respond. So, one more time, Sergeant Harry R. Martinez. No response. It's just silent. Sergeant Harry Richard Martinez. I'm using my name because I'm superstitious and I don't want to say a name. And it's just so, it's so sad because you know what the silence means. And it sounds to me like this is me standing there and I'm listening to this, like, please just answer. But you know there's no voice coming. And there's another NCO, Sergeant First Class Lamberson, who when the 101 got there, they already lost. One first sergeant got shot. So now he takes over as first sergeant and he gets killed. Now they're on their third first sergeant. And they only been there less than 6 months. We got a whole company of casualties. And the 101 is still deep in it. And I get assigned to this task force. So the way it works is the commander is a Marine Corps major. They work in 4-man teams. They brought in their 3 teams of 4 each. Officer, NCO, 2 non-rates, meaning E4 and below, or E3 and below. And they come in with their capabilities. Captain Shane Murray, Captain Jason Angel, and at the time, I believe he got promoted there, or maybe I'm wrong, but Major Garrick Rohr. Phenomenal, phenomenal officers. I make E6. And I'm like, when are you guys going to pin me? I go to my Army. Well, we'll get around to it. And I go back, and these Marine Corps officers come up, and I didn't know, but they had gotten together, and they started bombarding the guard units, like, you need to promote E5 Martinez to E6, because what he's doing out there is the responsibilities of an E6. And what he has done shows a man's more than quite capable. So making him E6. So all these arguments, even Colonel Clark, the battalion commander, my understanding was involved in this. And it happens. But Pennsylvania, they get the paperwork, they say it's happened, but they're not pinning me. So I tell Major Rohr, like, hey, they're not gonna pin me. Like, we'll do it right now. They form up a formation, and then for Staff Sergeant Martinez. Love it, Marine Corps. But so it's April, and they tell me, hey, go do some soul searching in Camp Ramadi, because we're about to lay a siege on Ramadi. We're going to take it down like we took Fallujah down. And you're going to be part of the 24-hour insertion to feed us information. Casualties are going to run extremely high. I'm like, okay. So off I go to Camp Ramadi, and I go, what do you want me to do over there? And like, meet up with the critical stress team. And what he's basically telling me, and I can't confirm this, but the impression I got was, you're being evaluated mentally. So go over there, talk to him. That's what I want you to do. Or I wasn't sure if he was trying to tell me, you're going to die, come to peace with what you're doing, and then come back to us. So I go over there. I'm with a medic. I link up with her. We're doing our thing. And I was like, I got to go to this critical stress team. Can you take me there? She's like, yeah, and then you just stay with me. I'm like, okay. So I go over there, I meet with the officer, and he tells me, look, I don't know why you're here. You look like you know what you're doing. You're not exhibiting anything. So here's some Ambien. You come here every morning and you tell me you're gonna go have breakfast and you feel fine and we're good. And I did that for 4 days. And I get back to Camp Ramadi. So as we're preparing, Task Force 145 comes in. 145 was already there and 121 rips them out. There's an overlap. Army Rangers are coming into Ramadi. SEAL Team 3 shows up. And I remember I'm working out in the gym and I see all these guys come in and they're wearing Army PT, their heads are shaved. They look like the Aryan Brotherhood of me. I'm like, who are these guys? And they're like, that's SEAL Team 3. I'm like, okay. And they're big boys. And I'm like, all right. And we're standing up. Battalions are coming in, they said. They have them on location and they're being staged so that we can hit Ramadi like we hit Fallujah. And 24 hours before execution, we get stood down. And so everybody departs except SEAL Team 3. And I'll never forget my first interaction with SEAL Team 3. We're at Full Metal Jacket. 2 of their snipers walk in. They're like, this is a sniper section in here. And over the radio, the towers would call us in and they would say, hey, look, they felt that we operated under a different ROE. We didn't. We had to meet PID just like everybody else. And they say, can you come to Tower 3? We're observing these individuals. One of them has a cell phone and he keeps looking at the camp. Well, that's enough to kill him. And so the sniper goes, well, why don't they kill him? And I'm like, I don't know, but you know what? I look at it as a training event. Why not? I'm gonna go range him. I'm gonna determine whether I can make the shot or not, and I'll kill him. They're like, can we come with you? I'm like, yeah. So we go out there, I climb the tower, and we're all crowded inside this little tower, barely enough room for 3 guys, and there's like 5 of us in there with these SEAL Team guys who are taking up 2/3 of the room. And I look, and sure enough, man, they're right there. He's on the rooftop, he's looking, he's kind of by the door. And I'm like, yeah, man. Hey, man, I was like, get my gun. I was like a diva at this point. Get my gun, get my water, setting it up. Good training event. I'm about to take a human life. And in my mind, it's just a training event. SEAL Team goes, hey, you mind if we do it? I'm like, no. You can kill him. I already got enough kills. They're like, okay. They climb down. They get up on the berm. I'm watching them work. I'm trying to see if I can learn. I don't see anything different what I do. And they take the shot. And I'm watching. Kills him. Drops him right on the roof. Nice. You could see a spray along the back wall. Like, definitely hit. Like, hit. They're like, cool. Pack up their gear and they're walking around like, hey, man, you got to call that in to talk. You know, just say dispatch with 1. He goes, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, here's the radio. Congratulations, you got yourself a kill. They're like, all right. And you can see they felt like, well, how elaborate do I get? Just say, hey, man, just tell them Tower 3, dispatch with 1, because they had already painted a picture for talk to follow. So I'm like, okay. So they repeat it. We go back. And I'm not sure how much time went between that event and what happens next. But I'm coming out of the gym again because the gym helped me stay mentally fit. I got this tall gentleman in front of me. And he looks down at me. He's like, hey, you're Staff Sergeant Martinez? I'm like, yes. He goes, listen, we're going to go do a mission, and we want to invite you along. You're highly recommended, and your capabilities are needed. Would you be willing to go? You don't have to do it if you don't want to. And I'm thinking, holy cow, it's SEAL Team 3. I don't even know about Chris Kyle. I don't even know them by name. I couldn't even tell you if it was Chris Kyle standing in front of me. But it's SEAL Team 3. The only person that I recognized was Jocko and his his command, part of his NCO for that command team. He was a stocky, Mediterranean skin Italian with a big, long mustache. And he was all business, kind of personable. Just, I'm thinking like, I'm dealing with SEAL Team 3. This is it. And they invite me. So I'm like, hey man, no worries. Thank you very much. So I know you guys are new here. Why don't you let me do final coordination? That's what we call it in the Marine Corps. And where you go through a series of final instructions and you collect that information, go back to the Chief Scout, he verifies that everything's been coordinated, and you push out into your mission. They're like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, okay. I said, well, why? I said, you're kind of new here. Again, I'm trying to like, this is how we do things. So at least let me set up fires and let me set up CASEVAC or medevac. And let me find out who the battle captain is. He goes, no, we don't do that. We're just gonna go. I go, well, let me give you a piece of advice. Respectfully, do not go out onto the rooftop because they're gonna throw hand grenades. It's very easy for the enemy to get underneath you, to throw hand grenades on the roof. So when we execute missions and we begin engaging the enemy, we do it from inside the building. He's like, yeah, thanks, man. Like, okay. I said, I'm gonna respectfully decline the mission. I'm not doing it. And he looks at me kind of strange. He goes, okay. And Ken Cook approaches me. He's like, hey man, do you mind if I take that mission from you? I'm like, no, it's up to you. I go, bro, they're not following protocol. They're not following the process we've established and things that I wouldn't even do. Ken goes with it, and they go execute. So I move into the SOC, the Scout Snipers Operations Center, and I kind of fall asleep, and then they wake me up, and there's an incident going on. There's a major firefight between Iraqi forces, accompanied by American forces, and these insurgents are killing them. Like, okay, so I start listening on the radio. I can hear it going back and forth. I hear the call out, bring the tanks. I'm like, holy cow. And they're like, we got dead Iraqi soldiers out there. Bring the tanks. So they bring out a tank. And that's what I know exactly happened. What they told me later was, when the tank came out, a VP banner came over the wall, indicating the Iraqis had been shooting an American unit. And it had gone back and forth between the two. And I remember being in that radio room like, who are those people shooting? Because the reports are coming back, these guys are real. They're into it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if we could have missed that. I don't know, Chechens maybe? I don't know. It's a blue and green incident. SEAL Team 3, accompanied by members of the Scout Sniper Platoon, engaged the Iraqi unit. And there were wounded people on both sides, and the Iraqis suffered a KIA, I think 1 KIA. How does that happen? And I asked, I'm a police officer. I want to know. And it turns out they had gone to a location and they called it in, the 10-digit grid, and they decided that that wasn't going to work for them, and they relocated and didn't notify TOC, Korea X-ray, they had gone to a new location. So when the friendly force went down the street, they saw movement in the building that appeared to be hostile, and as a result of that, small arms fire was exchanged between the two units, and RPG fire, and hand grenades. The reason I know it went so bad was Ken Cook, to this day, because of that incident, walks around with a box attached to his spine that emits electrical charges to destroy any pain that goes to his brain to tell him you're in pain. That's the end result of that work. SEAL Team 3 at one point shuts down operations to get itself together, figure out things I don't know. exactly other than what I heard, and I don't want to go on things that I just heard. So I just know that soon thereafter, they were shut down. And they resumed operations after the 101 left. When this is going on, again, I decide I'm going to Camp Ramadi. And I'm going to go buy shampoo because I just want to shampoo my beautiful long hair. They say, hey, Martinez, you want to be a gunner? I'm like, no, man, heavy guns ain't my thing. Like, cool, you'll be the vehicle commander. So we take off to Ramadi. I go buy my shampoo. We're going through the government center. The vehicle explodes I'm in. My gunner gets knocked out. There's smoke coming from the driver's side. I think he's on fire. I come to, I'm screaming, kill the trigger man, kill the trigger man. My gunner leans down, he's like, hey, we're good, brother, we're good. And they just roll through. I'm like, what? What just happened? And we roll into camp. Everybody's good to go. Gunner and driver, they go get checked out. I should have gotten checked out, but I didn't. I just went towards my barracks. I get approached, hey man, we got another patrol pushing out tonight into Malab. You're going. Okay, that's what I always do. I say yes. I go down there, they tell me, no, you're not going. I think they noticed it, but they didn't want to hurt my feelings. And then, or maybe they just didn't need me. That patrol went down there and it gets hit. They set off another ID. The driver loses her leg. The medic takes off her gear to get to this downed vehicle and to rescue her. But she has to climb into the vehicle. So she, in the middle of this firefight, this ambush, she sheds her body armor, climbs into the vehicle, administers first aid, pulls her out, grabs her gear, and drags her back. And she receives, this female medic, she receives the Archon with Valor, or maybe it was a Bronze Star with Valor. Amazing medic, Jesse. Wherever you are, God bless you. And this is what we're in. Task Force Dark Eagles put together. We were moving out to the street, and we're killing them. I remember seeing one trigger man pulls out the antenna, 592 meters away. Whole team's like watching them. And as I'm watching them, I'm like, come on, man, been on them hours. I tell my spotter, hey, jump on that gun. If this is what we're seeing, he meets PID already, but I just want to see something more overt than what's happening. But just be prepared for it. And it's York again. York calls me, hey man, he's got a box in his hand, he just extended the antenna. I'm like, let me see. And I look through the gun, I'm on it, seeing the scope, and he's trying to pick up. I look at the map, and I look at his location, I look where OP is. OP observers won't be able to see him. And I can hear on the radio, there's a convoy moving down the street. So in my mind, I paint a picture of him because he's hidden behind this tall grass that's khaki in color. And I imagine where his body's hidden in there. And I put my crosshairs on it, and I take the shot. And I see this pillar of dirt rise up, 592 yards. I see this pillar of dirt rise up. He's still looking in the direction of, at the moment when I shot him, and he's real still, and I'm like, I didn't miss, there's no way. And all of a sudden, he just falls, slowly. That tells me it's a tissue hit, not a bone. A bone would have smacked him down. Tissue just means it probably went through him, and that's the round that hit the wall behind him and sends that pillar of dirt in the path of least resistance in that space between the body and the wall. And he dies. And I see this dump truck put itself between him and an OP hotel. I guess they figured that's where the shot came from. I'm like, we're good. So he starts to drag the body, and I could see the driver. I'm like, in my mind, I'm already making the decision, I'm going to kill him. But I don't. Like, let him have it. He doesn't have any weapons. We got the trigger man. That's the most important thing. And they know, don't mess with us. So that man got to live that day. And they're like, man, we're killing them in Mulab, but we need to get inside Mulab. So Task Force Dark Eagle gets together. And we're like, all right, we got Air Force TAC-Ps, we got Army Scout snipers who are SDM qualified, and we go in. And I had made, a few weeks earlier, I had made another kill inside Mulab. I killed a guy inside a store because he was digging a hole in the street. There was an exchange of money, and he had gone in the store after he dug the hole. I figured this is my best opportunity, so I kill him. So I come back to the same location. It's a great location, take another shot. Weeks later, perfect timing. The owner of the house comes up to me. He speaks English. He's a doctor. And he says, you killed my best friend. I said, I don't know who your friends are. He goes, he's an older gentleman, and he describes him, and it matches the description of the guy that I killed a few weeks earlier. I said, yeah, that was me. He dug a hole. He took money from a younger military-aged male. He met requirements to be killed, so I killed him. He should have known better. And he went, yes. I'm like, Doc, go back to your room. Because when we take the house over, we sequester them to a single room. So now I have 4 officers on this patrol. 2 that just wanted to come. And, and the third one was the lieutenant from the Scout Sniper section of Army, the 506. We're on this rooftop. And I'm up on the night, I'm watching. I engage, I kill, and it sets off this major firefight. And then they roll up buses, and they're blocking off streets with the buses. And there's just guys coming. There's a guy on the phone, and my spotter's like, he's on his own gun because I've implemented that, you got your own gun, go ahead and use it. And I'm like, Joey's like, hey man, that guy just rolled in the bus, he's off the bus, he's on the phone, they're blocking off the streets, they're gathering groups of 5, they're going house to house, they're gonna find us. I'm like, Joey, if he gives more directions, if you think he's in charge, then kill him. I never used to substitute the word kill for anything else except kill. That's what we do. We don't terminate. I did it for them, for the SEAL team guys, but for our team alone, we didn't use that dialogue. I had to make sure my guys understood the decisions that we were making. So when they went to engage enemy, they report kills. And they come to the door. Everybody on every side of the house on that rooftop is engaged in killing somebody. And Captain Rard's like, we need close air support. And it's about a fight. I thought it was about a fighting force about 150. Joey engages that person he perceived to be in charge and kills him. And he shoots him twice. And the first shot hits him, and then it spins him, and it drops him. And the guy is still alive, so Joey shoots him again. And I'm pretty sure he took a second shot. And so Joey reports, he's down, he's dead, I killed him. Cool. Everyone's now engaged in the fight, bodies are dropping everywhere, and Marine Corps Captain Garrett Clark says, hey man, I'm gonna call in fast movers. We're gonna dump a 500-pound LMAV on them. They are all together. Like, hey, roger that. Goes up to brigade denies it, says no. And all of a sudden, I'm engaging, and I feel this down pressure, and I look up, and I see literally this jet fly over. Like, it's just like this jet right in front of me, and it chaffs, and that breaks them up, and they scatter. And then QRF rolls in, and they're like, everyone's exiting the house to get into these Bradleys. I go out, and I'm like, is everybody out of the house? I'm the last man out. It's me and this Anglico team. And I run up to the closest Bradley. I knock on the hatch, and it's a big hook, and you pound on it. And lieutenant pops out from the scout sniper section. He's like, go out there to the vehicle, that last vehicle. That's where you're gonna load up. It's the only one unprotected out in the middle of the street. And he says, and when you go up there, knock on the hatch, because they're not gonna drop the door for you like that. So you're gonna have to knock first. I'm like, oh my God, I've set my Marines up to be killed. So I take it upon myself. I'm like, I'll go. And I run across, and I'm thinking I'm the guy in the red shirt on the Star Trek movie. Terrible things happen. Rounds are cracking across, and as I go to knock, I hear the hook unlatch. I step out of the way, it drops. And boom, they file in. Captain Rard saved us. As we were going in, there was another insurgent coming up the street, and he's got the AK and he brings it up to engage us. He was going to spray us as we were all inside, and he kills him. And he goes, that's 5 today. And the thing rolls up, and we move away. It's on. And again, it just keeps, it never ended. That whole entire year, I got blown up inside a room. I was dropping hand grenades over the building, killing them in an alley. We all were. I remember one of the very last fights was in May of 2006. We're at this ECP, we're trying to build it up. We're doing it overnight. We're sending flares into the sky to give us light. And that afternoon, RPGs start coming down the street. Small arms fires coming from one other. So that's, I'm trying to orient myself. So that's north. So from the east, we got RPGs. From our northeast, we got PKM. And from slightly from our south, from our northwest, we've got small arms fire. We're getting hit from 3 different directions. We're returning fire. I could see them coming out of this building, and they're trying to get into the palm grove, and I'm shooting them. I see one guy stumble down, and all of a sudden, the next thing I know, so I'm lifted into the air, and I go black, and I'm on my back. And I remember my head getting pushed back real heavy, like, and I come to, and I'm seeing blue sky, beautiful blue sky. And I'm like, I'm dying. I'm like, it doesn't even hurt. I'm good. I'm glad that it's me and not my team. And I'm like, what a beautiful blue sky. Except I'm not dying. And I know that sooner or later this is gonna hurt like hell because I can hear no noise. I can see York shooting. I can see Bennett shooting. I can see the whole line shooting. And I'm like this, and just, wow, nobody's coming to help me. And that's the way it's supposed to be. So if you have to, and you're still alive, you must help yourself. So I'm like, I gotta stop my bleeding. So my hands are shaking. I'm looking at them. I don't want to look at my body on a hook. My helmet comes off. And I remember I'm touching my head, looking for the bullet wound, because I know I got hit in the head. Nothing. Nothing. And all of a sudden it starts coming back, all the noise. And I look at my helmet, I discard it, I go back across the roof, and as I'm going back onto the wall, it ends. Fight's over. I look at my helmet, look at me, nobody's saying anything. We go back to the camp. And at that point, they told us, mission's over. Jokerpur, you're standing down. You'll be on the first lift back to TQ. Your tour is over. I would go on to deploy 2 more times. I deployed 4 times in less than 6 years. I would end up working with 10th Group ODA 0311. Literally, that's what it was called, 0311. Again, omens. In Baghdad, in the city, in the neighborhood of Adamiyah, at a place called Apache. I would come back from that, and 5 months later, I would again deploy to Afghanistan. I watched a helicopter get shot out of the sky. I watched another helicopter approach our position under fire, and nearly get destroyed in the air. I watched them drop body bags that we call 8-balls, loaded with gear for us because we were pinned down to a physical location. And I saw these brave Vermont boys go out there and collect all that gear under fire. And we're just delivering hell onto the enemy, and they're giving it right back to us, almost toe to toe. My wall is erupting in fire. It's crumbling. It's like they're just aiming at that wall to disintegrate it. And in that few hours, I threw 9 hand grenades. I saw 2 E4s, one from California from the 185, rush this wall, and he just disappeared in a pillar of dirt. I'm like, oh my God. Him and another soldier from Vermont. I'm like, they're dead. They're laying on the ground, and they get up, they look at each other, because they were boys. Like, you good? I'm good. One has a broken arm, picks up his .249, starts delivering fire on the enemy in Afghanistan. By this time, I've been decorated for valor, 2 Bronze Star medals. I got a stack. And it doesn't compare to the words that I would later hear, and sometimes years later, like, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for being there. Those words mean more to me than any medal, flag, certificate, piece of paper. It just can't compare. I did 4 tours in 6 years when the war was at its height. And I volunteered for each and every one of them. It cost me 2 marriages. It nearly destroyed my relationship with my children. My son was jumping up and down in the middle of the living room. Where's my father? Where's my father? I remember watching the TV, and I'm in my living room for the first time, and the TV comes on, and it's this beautiful commercial. And weird enough, it's about a bank taking our money. And they have it disguised under these series of kind acts. Somebody sees something and inspires someone else to do a kind act. That person inspires that person to do a kind act. And in that 30 seconds, I'm just crying. And my wife comes over, she's like, what's wrong, puppy? I'm like, I'm good, I'm good. I just haven't seen kindness in a long, long time. And it's a commercial. It's not even freaking real. And I'm overwhelmed. And that pretty much was it for me in combat tours. Honestly, Josh, I just appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm sorry that some of it's still fresh after all these years. There's a lot of great people I didn't mention. I wish we had time. I have a deep, I'll say this. If the 506 ever asked me to come back, I'd go. And if they said, Gary, come back, but you got to go to airborne school, all right, send me. If that means I can fight with the 506 again. I met true, bona fide leaders out there. The best I've ever seen next to my experience in the Marine Corps. And on top of that, the Marines that were with me in there. First Anglico. Amazing men in their own right. True warriors. And I'm here because of them. That's the truth. It's just not me. It was a collective effort. I had a great team. They were open-minded. They listened. They had their own ideas, and collectively, we incorporated them, and all of us came home. That 4-man team, between the 4 of us, collected 3 ARCOMs with Valor, a Bronze Star with Valor, and 1 Purple Heart. just 4 guys. Between us, we have probably, I would say, just under 100 confirmed kills of bad guys. And they were bad, and they deserved it, each and every single one of them. I lose no sleep on that one. I can talk about hours for that, but maybe another time.